Chapter 61. The prince arrives, and the three pure ones are bewildered. The winds at Kunlun's peak cut to the bone. Yuanqi Tianzin fell still, brows knitting into a frown. East Sea? Dragon Clan? Tongtian sheathed his sword and resumed his place. His sharp eyes examined Xuanwu, yet the sword intent around him did not dissipate. You old turtle, are you of the Dragon Clan? Xuanwu drew deep breaths, his mountain-like bulk blocking the pool's entrance, refusing to yield an inch. He was anxious. He wasn't afraid to fight Tongtian alone, but with Taiking Laozi and Yuanqi joining the fray, no shell, however strong, could hold. What if I am? He rumbled. Dragon Clan. Yuanqi Tianzun snorted, arrogance plainly on his face. A clan that perished in the Dragonhan calamity, burdened by karma, reduced to scraping by in the four seas, yet they send a thing like you to stir trouble on the land of Pangu's orthodox descendants? You're talking nonsense, Xuanwu bristled. My dragon clan was appointed by the heavenly Tao to govern the four seas, to watch over the world's waterways. You call us losers? Enough. Taiking's voice cut through the rising heat, and both Yuanqi and Xuanwu's tempers cooled under his calm. He looked at Xuanwu with steady eyes. Fellow Taoist, you snuck in here intent on taking the Three Lights' divine water. What do you plan to do with it? I said I'm taking it, not stealing it, Xuanwu snapped. Besides, you three are hoarding the pool and not using it yourselves. Why shouldn't others use it? We cultivate the Tao here, comprehending Father God's legacy. This water is fated to us. We guard it, Yuanqi said as if stating the obvious. Fated? Xuanwu laughed bitterly. You cultivate pure qi and call this water your fate? What sort of fate is that? Those words hit the three pure ones hard. In truth, they could not use the Three Lights' divine water. They guarded it because they deemed it a treasure that should not benefit outsiders. Tension tightened the air. The azure peace sword in Tongtian's hand began to hum again. A clear voice suddenly rang across the mountaintop, piercing everyone's ears. Xuanwu's words are crude, but his reasoning is sound. This thing truly has no fate with the three of you. A golden light tore the sky and settled beside the pool. When it faded, a young man in white robes stood there with his hands behind his back. The world seemed to find its center with his arrival. It was Longchen. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Xuanwu's surprise turned to relief. He instinctively shrank behind the prince, seeking shelter. The three pure ones were stunned. They remembered the Dragon Clan's crown prince from Xianxia Palace, the one bold enough to watch a saint's Tao field, and now he stood before them. Longchen cupped his hands in greeting, courteous but composed. Greetings, three fellow Taoists, he said. Taiking returned the bow, but his eyes narrowed. He couldn't read this man. Longchen's aura was deeper, more concealed than at Xianxia Palace, more unsettling. Yuanqi's face remained cold. He leveled the three treasures' jade scepter at Xuanwu behind Longchen. Fellow Taoist Longchen, you come at a convenient time. Your Dragon Clan's subordinate infiltrated our pure cultivation grounds. What is his intent? Explain yourself. Explain. Longchen glanced at the shimmering pool, then at the three who stood as if guarding against thieves. There's nothing to explain. His voice was low, but each syllable landed with weight. My Dragon Clan wants this Three Lights' divine water. At those words, the wind stilled. Xuanwu gaped at Longchen's back, half expecting the prince to mediate, but he had plainly staked a claim. The faces of the three pure ones went dark. Arrogant, Tongtian snapped, stepping forward. The azure peace sword thrummed and sent a sword chi rift into the clouds. Longchen, do you think this is your East Sea Dragon Palace? This place was formed from Father God Pangu's spine. You have no right to act presumptuously. Presumptuous? Longchen turned his head to Tongtian with a calm smile. Fellow Taoist Tongtian, if I said that if this water remains here for another 10,000 years, it will become a stagnant pool, would you believe me? Tongtian stared. You're talking nonsense. I never talk nonsense. Longchen's gaze swept the three, measured and unhurried. You three are Pangu's primordial spirits, cultivating innate pure qi. That is fundamentally incompatible with this water's nature. This water is the convergence of the sun's, moon's, and stars' lights, creation itself. If it lingers here without a homologous power to nourish it and is repeatedly eroded by your pure qi, its origin will wear away. In time, it would be no different from the spring water at the mountain's foot. Each sentence was reasonable, and the three pure ones' frowns deepened. Even if they felt justified in guarding the pool, Longchen's logic rang true. Even so, it has nothing to do with your dragon clan, Yuanqi snapped. This is Pangu's legacy. We are Pangu's orthodox descendants. How it is handled is our decision. Pangu's orthodox descendants? Longchen smiled more brightly. Fellow Taoist Yuanqi, that's not right. He spoke as if reciting a lesson. Great God Pangu transformed into the Great Desolation and blessed all beings. His possessions belong to the entire Great Desolation. When did they become the private property of the three pure ones? Yuanqi's face purpled with rage. Long Chen turned to Tai King, who had been silent. Fellow Taoist Tai King cultivates non-action and follows the natural heavenly Tao. Yet now my dragon clan needs this water, and I have come to take it. That is heaven's will. If you obstruct me, you conflict with your own Tao. Tai Ching's eyelids twitched. Reasoning with this crown prince was impossible. The prince's tongue was sharper than the immortal slaughtering sword. Long Chen. Tongqian could not bear it and advanced, sword in hand. Enough with the glib tongue. No matter what you say, you came to steal. I, Tongqian, declare this today. With the three of us here, you will not take a single drop of the three lights' divine water. Oh? Long Chen smiled. Fellow Taoist Tongqian, do you know where your Tao lies? The question came abruptly. Tongqian was taken aback and on impulse answered, My Tao lies in this sword. It follows heaven's will above and slays demons below. Wrong. Long Chen shook his head. Your Tao is neither in heaven nor on earth, not in your elder brother's non-action, nor in your second brother's compliance with heaven. His gaze slid past Tongqian's body and fixed on the cult master's primordial spirit. Your Tao lies in the character intercept. Boom. The single word struck like chaos lightning. Tongqian's primordial spirit felt blasted. His mind went blank, and the hand that gripped the azure piece sword trembled. For the first time, both Yuanqi and Tai King's expressions shifted. Long Chen did not stop. His voice whispered into Tongtian's ear, each word carrying the force of revelation. The heavenly Tao has 50. The great expansion is 49, and one escapes. He looked piercingly into Tongqian's eyes and enunciated every syllable. Your Tao is to intercept that sliver of life for all beings in this heaven and earth. To teach without discrimination, to call 10,000 immortals to court. That is your upper pure great Tao. Fellow Taoist Tongqian, what I say, am I right or not? Tongqian's breathing grew ragged, his mind raged and then settled. All the vague impulses that had been with him for eons snapped into clarity under Long Chen's words. To teach without discrimination, to gather 10,000 immortals to court, to intercept that sliver of life. This was his Tao, his path made plain. His Tao heart burned clearer than ever. Tai Ching and Yuanqi watched in stunned silence. Yuanqi's gaze on Long Chen held not only anger, but a strange, unnameable apprehension. In Tai King's eyes, which had not changed for 10,000 years, great waves now rolled. This Dragon Clan crown prince, how could he know such things? How could he see Tongqian's Tao more clearly than Tongqian himself? Who exactly was he? Chapter 62, One Word to Repel the Three Pure Ones, You. Tongqian's voice was dry, his knuckles white from gripping his sword too tightly. He stared at Long Chen as if at a demon who had overturned his understanding and his Tao. Tai Ching and Yuanqi's expressions had changed completely. The condescension of being Pangu's orthodox lineage had vanished, replaced by the cold panic of having their secrets exposed. I know far more than you imagine. Long Chen ignored Tongqian's momentary loss of composure and turned his attention to Yuanqi Tianzun. Fellow Taoist Yuanqi, your Tao lies in elucidation, he said. To explain the heavenly mandate and act according to heaven, you prize lineage and origin, insist on strict law, and only accept disciples with deep blessings and pure roots. Yuanqi's jaw tightened. That was his Tao, his pride as a scion of Pangu's orthodox line. Long Chen's voice grew colder. But under the heavenly Tao, can there be absolute smoothness? Your Tao of elucidation and your third brother's all-encompassing Tao, the one that tries to seize even a sliver of hope for all living beings, are fundamentally at odds. Yuanqi's face suddenly turned dark. Long Chen's words cut straight into an unspoken, long-standing ideological rift among the three. Nonsense, Yuanqi snapped. We three were born of the same body. Our Tao thoughts are intertwined. How dare you sow discord here? Is that so? Long Chen laughed, a harsh sound that rubbed at Yuanqi's nerves. Then why, when fellow Taoist Tongqian comprehended his great Tao, did you, as his second brother, show not joy but displeasure? Yuanqi was speechless. He had indeed resented Tongqian's idea of teaching without discrimination, fearing it would stain Pangu's prestige. He never expected Long Chen to have noticed the fleeting expression so precisely. Long Chen then looked to the always quiet Taiching Laozi. Fellow Taoist Taiching, you cultivate non-action, valuing tranquility and non-contention. You will, in time, found the human Tao, enlighten the protagonists of heaven and earth, and attain sainthood through karma. At those words, a ripple passed through Taiking's placid eyes. Protagonists of heaven and earth? Found the human Tao? That was exactly the faint pattern he had been tracing for tens of thousands of years, one that had always been shrouded in mist. Long Chen continued, measured but incisive. Non-action does not equal heartlessness. Your only disciple will, in the future, use your name to repeatedly provoke disputes with your two junior martial uncles, sowing chaos across the three realms. At that time, will you, the saint of non-action, intervene? He paused. If you intervene, you break your Tao. If you do not, how will you face your two junior brothers? Enough! Taiking's low roar sent out an invisible wave of immortal light that stilled the chaotic gales atop the peak. He fixed Long Chen with a lethal gaze and demanded, word by word, who exactly are you? Yuanqi and Tongqian stared as well, waiting for the answer. This man was too strange. Every sentence he spoke sounded like a glimpse from the end of time into the future they were bound to travel. That feeling of being utterly seen through made the primordial spirits of the three future saints tremble. Who I am is not important, Long Chen said, spreading his hands in a composed gesture. What matters is that I know something of your Tao, of your future. He pointed at the pool where divine light flowed. And my intention is simple. He met their eyes. I intend to take the water. This water concerns the luck of my dragon clan. I must have it. His voice settled over them like a mountain. Your Tao, your future, your struggle for orthodoxy, they revolve around Xianxia Palace and the saint position. Your futures are long and filled with variables. To bind your Tao with my dragon clan over a pool of divine water that is largely useless to you, and to bind your karma with a person who knows your future, is that worth it? Silence fell across the peak. Yuanqi's face shifted between anger and fear, his sleeve clenched so tightly it creaked. Worth it? This was no simple choice. If Long Chen spoke truth, offending him would be like planting an unknown celestial thunderbolt in their great Tao, ready to explode at any moment. Yet they were the Sangqing, Pangu's orthodox lineage. How could they allow a mere junior to force them into retreat with a few words? Long Chen! Yuanqi forced the shock and anger down and made one last bid for dignity. Even if what you say is true, this is still the secluded cultivation ground of the three of us. This Three Lights divine water is even a legacy from Father God. If your dragon clan wishes to take it, you owe us an explanation. An explanation? Long Chen smiled. I will explain. He raised three fingers. First, I will use this water to refine a supreme spirit treasure that will regulate the water veins of the Great Desolation. Once the treasure is complete, the entire water system of the Great Desolation will stabilize, benefiting all living beings, a great karma. If the three of you assist today, you will be bound to that karma, which will be beneficial to your Tao. Yuanqi's face softened a touch. It was a plausible reason. Long Chen continued. Second, my dragon clan will owe the Sangqing a favor. In the future, for any of your disciples who travel within the four seas, I, Long Chen, will personally guarantee their safety once. That promise carried weight. The four seas were the dragon clan's domain. Offering them assured protection, there was like holding a protective talisman for the disciples of the three sects. Third, Long Chen's gaze fell on Tongqian's ever-humming Qingping sword. Fellow Taoist Tongqian, your sword is somewhat lacking. Tongqian froze. Long Chen flicked his wrist and produced a fist-sized dark gold block of divine iron engraved with killing Tao patterns. The moment it appeared, an extreme sharpness pulsed outward. The Qingping sword in Tongqian's hand gave a mournful cry. Its light dimmed before a superior material. Geng metal divine iron, a killing origin divine material from the Western continent, Long Chen said. Today I present it to you, fellow Taoist, as a token of my Dragon Clan's sincerity. Tongtian's eyes widened. He could feel the killing origin in the iron resonating perfectly with his great Tao. If he reforged his sword with this material, his breath hitched. He turned to his two elder brothers, eyes pleading more than asking. Tai King looked from the iron to the calm figure of Long Chen, then to his third brother, utterly taken. He sighed inwardly. The Dragon Crown Prince had applied pressure with the future, paved the way with karma, and finally struck precisely at their weakest link with a supreme spirit material. Each move left them no room to refuse. After a long silence, Tai Ching spoke, voice weary. So be it. What fellow Taoist says does have merit. You may take the Three Lights' divine water. Yuanqi opened his mouth but fell silent. However, Tai King added, we three are still comprehending the Tao here and need this water to settle our minds. Fellow Taoist, take only half. Agreed, Long Chen said. He had never intended needless ruthlessness. He walked to the pool's edge, produced a jade bottle, and scooped exactly half of the divine water. As he turned, he flicked his finger. The gang metal divine iron dissolved into a golden light and settled into Tongtian's hand. Fellow Taoist Tongtian, we shall meet again. Before his words died away, Long Chen and the dazed Xuanwu transformed into streaks of light and vanished into the horizon. Silence returned to the peak of Mount Buzhou. Only the Sanqing remained, looking at one another in uneasy quiet. Yuanqi stared at the half-empty pool, his face still grim. Big brother, you just let him go like that? What else could we do? Tai Ching replied. For a bit of water, should we make an enemy of him, the unfathomable dragon clan behind him, and his ability to know the future? He glanced at Tongtian, who was still turning the divine iron over and over, unable to let go. Tai King shook his head. Long Chen is not simple. He drew his gaze away and spoke solemnly. What do you make of his words today? Yuanqi was quiet for a long moment before answering. They don't seem like lies. His understanding of our great Tao reached places even we have not seen. Tongtian put the divine iron away, brows knitted. He seems to have seen some inevitability at the end of the Tao. That scares me more than if he had simply foretold the future. Yes, Tai King said, looking toward the depths of chaos and the direction of Xianxia Palace. The waters of this great desolation run deeper than we imagined. He finally reached a conclusion. In the future, we must keep our distance from this dragon clan. Especially Long Chen. Avoid provoking him as much as possible. Chapter 63. All waters converge into one, and the magic pearl is finally formed. East Sea, Crystal Palace, Coiling Dragon Hall. Long Chen's figure appeared, and the coral treasures that had been constantly shivering with spiritual power suddenly stilled. On the steps below, the 4 dragon kings and a line of dragon clan elders waited. As Long Chen emerged, their armor scraped together, and they all bowed in perfect unison, movements so synchronized they might have been one body. Welcome back, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Every dragon's gaze drifted to the small jade bottle in Long Chen's hand. Inside, 3 streams of divine light, sun, moon, and star, wound like tamed spirit serpents, coiling and merging. Each rotation condensed the hall's water's spiritual qi. The air grew heavy, as if filled with lead. 3 Lights' divine water. Ao Dong, the East Sea Dragon King, stood at the fore, his throat dry as he squeezed the words through clenched teeth. Ao Nan, the South Sea Dragon King, usually hot-tempered, had lowered his voice and betrayed an involuntary tremor. Your Highness, that's from Kunlun Mountain, the territory of the 3 Pure Ones of Pangu. Did you truly obtain this from them? To the Dragon Clan's high ranks, Pangu orthodoxy was an immovable, heavenly monument, the sort of forbidden land you detour hundreds of millions of miles to avoid. Their crown prince had not only gone there, he had returned with a treasure. This was no mere feat of courage. It poked a hole at the edge of the heavens, and the heavens had not yet struck back. They were reasonable, Long Chen said calmly, and those words settled the Dragon King's hearts. He handed the jade bottle to the Candle Dragon beside him. Elder Candle Dragon, I debated the Tao with the 3 Pure Ones. My primordial spirit has been slightly exhausted. I must rest. The final step, using this divine water to enlighten the true spirit of the water bead, I leave to you. The Candle Dragon extended his withered claws and accepted the jade bottle solemnly. The small bottle felt heavier than an ancient divine mountain in his grasp. His old eyes, which had watched eras rise and fall, flamed with a terrifying brightness. "Rest assured, Your Highness." His voice was hoarse, but resolute, as if staking his life on his words. "This old dragon's cultivation is for the Dragon Clan. If this treasure is not completed, this old dragon will not emerge from seclusion." Longchen nodded and turned his gaze aside. Xuanwu the turtle stretched his neck and pawed a white jade pillar carved with dragons and phoenixes, muttering, "How extravagant! Much nicer than my dark, dingy shack in the North Sea. I wonder if it's sturdy." "You've worked hard on this journey, fellow Taoist." Longchen flicked a finger, and a human head-sized glob of dark, watery liquid sailed toward Xuanwu. "This is a wisp of mysterious water origin from the core of the Western Earth vein. You rendered meritorious service containing that vein. This will stabilize your Tao foundation." Xuanwu's turtle eyes widened. He stretched his long neck, opened his mouth, and swallowed the mass of mysterious water origin. Burp! A loud belch resonated through the coiling dragon hall. A warm current flowed from his belly throughout his body. The Tao injuries from suppressing the earth vein were washed away by that pure origin, and pleasure nearly escaped as a groan. "Serving Your Highness is no hardship. If there's another chance like this, Your Highness, just name it." Xuanwu shouted in muffled tones, his eyes on Longchen now full of a new kind of reverence. This crown prince was not only powerful, but generous. He had chosen the right leg to cling to. Longchen said no more. He entered the secret chamber in the rear hall, and the stone door slowly closed. The candle dragon, clutching the jade bottle and the chaos water bead, moved silently toward the Dragon Clan's forbidden land, the Eye of the Earth Fire Dragon vein. Days slipped by. 49 days later, above the East Sea, dense vapors congealed into clouds and poured down spiritual rain that spread over the entire East Sea. When the rain fell on an old carp that had cultivated 10,000 years but had not yet transformed, its body trembled and it leaped from the water, turning into a flood dragon. Raindrops sprinkled newborn hatchlings. They opened their mouths in ignorance, and their cultivation began to climb day by day. Then, on the 81st day, from the deepest core of the Eye of the Earth Fire Dragon vein, a distant Tao sound issued forth. It was not loud, yet the single note immediately echoed through the 4 seas and the 8 desolations. A pillar of glazed light shot to the heavens and split the earth, bursting out of the crystal palace, tearing through 10,000 fathoms of seawater, and streaking into the 9 heavens, staining the East Sea sky a glazed hue. At that instant, every law connected to water trembled and submitted. In the East Sea, towering waves folded down toward the crystal palace like subjects bowing to their sovereign. In the South Sea, the perpetually boiling earth fire at the seabed cooled and softened. In the West Sea, the evil qi that had accumulated over countless yuanhui was smoothed by an invisible hand, and the waters became clear. In the North Sea, warm currents began to surge from deep within the eternal ice. The 4 seas prostrated themselves to a newly born ruler. The spectacle alarmed top-tier powerhouses across the Great Desolation. Within the heavenly palace at Sunstar, Dijun opened his eyes, and the scene of the East Sea reflected in his golden pupils. The river diagram and Lo-Shu scroll floated and moved without wind, frantically calculating. A treasure that controls all waters. The luck of the Dragon Clan has risen again. Beside him, Emperor Taiyi toyed with the Chaos Bell and looked impatient. "Brother, the Dragon Clan keeps causing trouble. I should take a few demon gods to the East Sea and teach them a lesson." "No need." Daijun waved him back, his gaze inscrutable. "The time has not yet come. The authority of this treasure lies in water. It does not directly conflict with the Heavenly Court's jurisdiction. Besides, the Witch Clan holds the lands and the Dragon Clan the 4 seas. Let them clash first. We will observe." Above the netherworld Blood Sea, old ancestor Ming He woke from cultivation, his gaze fixed on the East Sea. His expression shifted like weather. "What domineering authority! This cuts off the path of every water element cultivator in the world," he muttered. "A remarkable figure has risen in the Dragon Clan. The waters of the Great Desolation darken." Back in the coiling dragon hall, the sealed stone door opened quietly. Longchen stepped out into the main hall's center. The candle dragon approached, carrying a jade box. He looked drained, his horns had dulled, but his eyes stamped with alarming light. "Your Highness, I have not failed." He opened the jade box. A fist-sized treasure bead floated up, radiating a glazed, treasure-like sheen. Inside the bead, a world of water existed, small dragons formed of the three divine lights, sun, moon, star, chasing and playing within. Each stroke of their fins resonated with the external water laws. On the bead's shell, countless natural water vein patterns combined into a flawless map of the Great Desolation's myriad water veins. It was alive. "Good," Longchen praised. "Good," the others echoed. "Good." Longchen reached out and held the bead in his palm. A sense of bloodline connection flowed from it. "From this day forth, you will be the guardian treasure of my dragon clan." His words carried through the hall, each syllable clear to every dragon clan elder. Name, Myriad Waters Dragon Pearl. As his voice fell, the bead emitted a clear, draconic roar, transforming into a stream of light that actively merged into Longchen's glabella. Vast, boundless information flooded his sea of consciousness. The pulse of every river, every lake, even every dewdrop across the Great Desolation unfolded in his perception. He had become the co-lord of all water in the Great Desolation. "Your Highness, this treasure is complete. Its grade exceeds that of a top-grade innate spirit treasure," the Candle Dragon said, a touch of regret in his tone. "It's only one step away from qualifying as an innate supreme treasure. It's not a matter of grade, but of status." Longchen opened his eyes and his gaze turned deep. "It has the practical power to control all waters, but it lacks the title of acting on behalf of the Heavenly Tao. It lacks Heavenly Tao recognition, the authority to command the Great Desolation's myriad waters." The Candle Dragon sighed. "That authority is ordained by heaven. I fear it can only be personally granted by the Tao ancestor. If the Heavenly Tao won't grant it, I will take that authority from the myriad waters of the Great Desolation myself." Before Longchen's words had fully died away, an urgent alarm bell clanged outside the hall. A heavily armored Dragon Clan general burst in, one giant claw severed at the root and his carapace scored with sword marks. "Report." He knelt on one knee, voice hoarse and urgent. "Reporting to Your Highness the Crown Prince and the 4 Dragon Kings." Ao Shen, commander of the Sea Suppression Bureau's West Sea Branch, sent an urgent dispatch. The hall stiffened. Ao Shi, the West Sea Dragon King, stepped forward. "Ao Shen, he's the one watching the continent from the West Sea shore. What happened?" "Duke of the East has gone mad." The general looked up, eyes blazing. He gathered tens of thousands of cultivators, proclaimed the Immortal Court in Purple Mansion Prefecture, and declared himself Immortal Emperor. He's pushing toward West Kunlun now. He announced to the world that he acts under the Tao ancestors' mandate to integrate all the world's immortal leaders, and he demands that the Queen Mother of the West, the leader of the female immortals, submit to him. Our scouts on the West Sea shore investigating his movements were all annihilated by the Immortal Court's vanguard. Commander Ao Shen barely managed to send this message with his life. Uproar broke out in the hall. Ao Dong scowled. The Duke of the East? That fool Hongjun was given a nominal title by the Tao ancestor. Where did he get such audacity? A foolish enemy and a shrewd ally. I'll choose the latter. Longchen's voice was steady and silencing. He walked to the map of the Great Desolation's water veins that hung in the hall and fixed his gaze on West Kunlun. Hongjun set him up as the head of the male immortals to gather the luck of loose cultivators and act as a trailblazer. This person's ambition far outstrips his ability. Now he attacks the Queen Mother of the West to annex her forces and chase his dream of the Immortal Court reigning supreme. Longchen's eyes scanned the Dragon Kings. The Queen Mother oversees the female immortals and has governed West Kunlun for years. Her strength must not be underestimated. More importantly, West Kunlun borders the western continent we just pacified. She will be our future neighbor. He raised one finger. A friendly neighbor is worth more than territory held by a fool. He raised a second. Aid in their moment of need forges bonds more solid than any decree. Longchen looked at the Candle Dragon. Elder, prepare a generous gift. Chapter 64. The Prince of Dong seeks death, and the prince hands him a knife. The Dragon Clan lay dormant, but the stage of the Great Desolation never lacked actors eager to make an appearance. The Duke of the East, newly appointed Lord of the Immortal Court, had been rebuffed by the Queen Mother of the West, and his patience had finally run out. Immortal light wove like threads across the sky above West Kunlun. Banners blotted out the heavens, and the Duke personally led the immortal court army to the border with overwhelming momentum. The gates of the Jade Pond immortal realm were tightly shut. The mountain-protecting formation glowed with spiritual light, its intention to refuse guests plain to see. The Duke hovered in the clouds, face grim. "Queen Mother of the West," he bellowed. "I was personally appointed by the Tao ancestor to be head of the male immortals, to command the immortal Tao. As the head of the female immortals, you should obey my orders. Why do you avoid me?" His voice rode on magic power, making West Kunlun itself hum. Birds and beasts in the mountains prostrated themselves, trembling. Inside the Jade Pond, there was a dead silence. An immortal official behind the Duke stepped forward and flattered loudly. "Emperor Lord, this Queen Mother does not know how to appreciate favors. We should just break through her gates." "Right, the Emperor Lord acts on behalf of heaven to uphold the Tao. If she disobeys, she disrespects the Tao ancestor. Give the order, Emperor Lord, we'll be the vanguard." A few words of flattery eased the Duke's grim expression. His last shred of apprehension slipped away. "Queen Mother of the West, if you do not open these gates again, do not blame me for forcing my way into your Jade Pond." Magic gathered in his hand, and a dragon head staff appeared, its dragon eyes gleaming with fierce light. Just as he prepared to strike, a clear, cold female voice floated from inside the Jade Pond, threaded with a hint of wariness. "Duke of the East, this is my private place of cultivation. Must you cause a disturbance here?" "Humph. Today I will cause trouble. What can you do to stop me?" the Duke retorted, arrogance swelling in every syllable. There was a playful note in the Queen Mother's reply. "I happen to have a distinguished guest. He requested to meet you, Lord of the Immortal Court." At her words, the tightly shut immortal gate of the Jade Pond creaked open to both sides. A young man in a dark robe embroidered with dragon patterns stepped out. He did not glance at the murderous Duke of the East, nor at the tens of thousands of immortal court cultivators. He first looked up at the sky above West Kunlun, then lowered his head and smoothed his neatly kept cuffs with practiced fingers as if the vast army outside did not exist. Only then did his gaze fall on the Duke. It was an indifferent look, as if he were inspecting a stone by the roadside. "Duke of the East?" the young man said, his voice soft but clear to everyone present. "I heard you want to be the overlord of the Great Desolation." The Duke stared at the newcomer and asked, astonished, "Who are you?" "No one you know," the young man replied simply. "East Sea, Longchen." "Longchen," the Duke repeated, then paled as recognition struck. "The crown prince of the Dragon Clan?" The name Longchen carried weight among the 3,000 guests of Xianxia Palace, a monster who had dozed off in a Saint's Tao field and still walked out alive. "It is I," Longchen nodded quietly. The Duke's expression twisted with confusion and concealed fear. Why was Longchen here? Hadn't the Dragon Clan sworn never to set foot on the continent? He suppressed his shock and, mustering a fierce but hollow tone, shouted, "Fellow Taoist Longchen, why are you not in the East Sea? Why are you in West Kunlun under my immortal court's jurisdiction?" "Your territory," Longchen echoed, as if the idea amused him. "I heard this fellow Taoist Queen Mother of the West's Tao field. The Queen Mother of the West is head of the female immortals, and I am head of the male immortals. We both oversee the immortal Tao. Her Tao field is naturally part of my immortal court's domain," the Duke roared, craning his neck. "Oh?" Longchen drew the sound out. "So this guest of mine is an uninvited one?" "Humph, at least you admit it." The Duke mistook Longchen's tone for fear and felt emboldened. "Longchen, I don't care what kind of crown prince you are. Leave West Kunlun at once, or don't blame my immortal court for being unforgiving." The immortal officials behind him stepped forward, their magic treasures flashing with light, killing intent blooming from each of them. Longchen looked at them and smiled faintly. "Duke of the East, I'm quite curious. Who gave you the right to speak to me like that?" the Duke demanded. "Hongjun," Longchen said casually. The Duke's smugness froze. "Presumptuous. How dare you call the Tao ancestor by name?" Longchen's smile faded, and his eyes went cold. "The Tao ancestor personally bestowed upon me the title of head of the male immortals. That title grants me authority over the immortal Tao. In the Great Desolation continent, apart from the witch and demon clans, who dares defy me? Is that so? The Duke stammered. It seems you still haven't figured it out. Long Chen pointed a finger at him. Today, I'll give you a lesson, teach you who you cannot afford to provoke. Before the words finished, Long Chen had already disappeared from where he'd stood. The Duke's scalp tingled. Instinctively, he swept the dragon head staff across his chest. Innate yang qi flared from the spirit treasure, but it was too late. A hand pressed onto his shoulder, white, clean, long-fingered, and the moment it landed, the Duke's magic was locked. Bones clicked, his strength ebbed away. It was not a hand at all, but the four seas themselves. Billions of tons of seawater and the will of endless water veins slammed down on him, pinning him to the spot. The dragon head staff slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the clouds, its radiance extinguished. His legs buckled. He collapsed and knelt in a single swift, humiliating motion. The Immortal Court experts who had been clamoring to advance froze mid-surge. They watched their Emperor Lord, the Tao ancestors' appointed head of the male immortals, held down by a single hand and forced to his knees while the man who had done it stood upright. You, the Duke stammered, face flushed, eyes full of humiliation and fear. He tried to resist, but the pressure was like an ancient divine mountain, unyielding, suppressing every ounce of strength and dignity. Now, do you understand? Long Chen asked coldly. Can you afford to provoke my dragon clan? The Duke ground his teeth, staring at Long Chen's boots with loathing. Still unconvinced, Long Chen snorted. After all, he was appointed by the Tao ancestor, he said, and then he released his hand and stepped back. Freed, the Duke sprang up, snatched the dragon head staff, and teleported 100 zong away in embarrassment, glaring at Long Chen. Long Chen, you dare humiliate me? That is disrespect to the Tao ancestor. My immortal court and your dragon clan are irreconcilable. I will report this and make West Qilin and the East Sea Dragon clan pay. Long Chen barely lifted an eyelid. He turned toward the Jade Pond and called calmly, "Fellow Taoist Queen Mother of the West, the show is over. Come out and discuss matters properly." The Queen Mother of the West stepped forward. She glanced at the Duke, snarling like a mad dog, then at Long Chen's composed profile. Her eyes were complicated. She knew Long Chen was formidable, but she had not expected him to be this strong. "Thank you for resolving the situation, Your Highness," she said and bowed. "It was a small effort," Long Chen waved. "But it seems this trouble hasn't fully dissipated," he added. When the Duke saw the Queen Mother emerge, he did not retreat. Instead, he aimed a fresh volley of accusation at her. "Queen Mother of the West, you actually colluded with the Dragon Clan remnants to deal with me. Do you still hold the Tao ancestor in any regard?" The Queen Mother's brows knit. "Duke of the East, you were the one who first caused trouble at my mountain gate. My action was merely in response to your provocation." "Provocation?" The Duke laughed bitterly. "Good, very provoking indeed." His venomous gaze flicked between Long Chen and the Queen Mother. "You two just wait. I will remember today's humiliation. When I report to the Tao ancestor, I will make sure West Qilin and the East Sea Dragon clan pay." He was about to lead his troops away in humiliated retreat when Long Chen spoke again. "Wait a moment." The Duke hesitated and turned back cautiously. "What else do you want?" "Nothing much." Long Chen's smile returned, but it was the kind that sent a chill down the Duke's spine. "Just a reminder, when you go back to complain, make the tale as dramatic as possible. Tell the Tao ancestor that the Dragon Clan's ambition is not dead, that we intend to meddle in the Great Desolation and utterly disregard his authority. And as you complain, greatly inflate the strength of your immortal court. Say you have already integrated 80% of the loose immortals across the Great Desolation, that your strength is overwhelming, and you only await the Tao ancestor's order to flatten the four seas." Long Chen's words stunned everyone. The Duke stood dumbfounded, convinced he must have misheard. Was Long Chen really coaching him on how to exaggerate? The Queen Mother, too, was at a loss to understand Long Chen's intent. Only Long Chen himself looked on at the Duke with the pleased expression of someone admiring a useful tool. "Go," he said. "The bigger the fuss, the better. Preferably, let the entire Great Desolation know your immortal court is marching to war against my Dragon Clan. I will be waiting." The Duke of the East fled, dragging his immortal court army with him. The last look he threw at Long Chen was a volatile mix of terror, resentment, and baffled incomprehension, as if he had glimpsed something beyond his understanding. Before the gate of Kunlun Mountain, that eternal, frost-cold immortal chi settled over the place again. The Queen Mother of the West stood at the entrance to the Jade Pool, but she did not watch the Duke's desperate retreat. Her gaze remained fixed on the young man's back as he walked slowly into the mist-wreathed pool, moving as if inspecting his own courtyard. The Jade Pool exhaled streams of immortal chi and tinkled with spirit springs, every scene an embodiment of the innate Tao, a supreme holy place that female immortals of the primordial world coveted. Yet as the young man passed through it, the place felt strangely at home with him, as if it had been waiting for someone like him to take charge. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince." The Queen Mother of the West spoke without any detectable emotion. "You taught him to lodge his complaint. Are you trying to hitch West Kunlun to the Dragon Clan's war chariot?" Long Chen did not turn. He walked unhurriedly to a naturally formed jade table, brushed his sleeve and sat. He picked up the jade pot, poured a cup of jade nectar, and drank with calm, deliberate movements. "What do you think the Duke of the East is?" he asked casually. The question hung without preamble. The Queen Mother rose with feather-light steps and sat opposite him, the mist of the jade pool swirling around her skirts. "The head of the male immortals, personally appointed by the Tao ancestor, the Lord of the Immortal Court," she replied evenly. It was the standard answer. Long Chen raised the jade cup to his lips, but did not drink. He simply stared at his reflection in the shimmering brew. Then he smiled. "Wrong. He's just a dog." The word landed flat and cold, yet it made the surface of the jade pool quiver. A dog kept by the Tao ancestor to guard a gate, and incidentally to keep the Yao race's great tiger in check. But now that dog is no longer content to guard the gate. He wants to be the master, even to bite to death a neighbor the master once appeased. Long Chen finally looked up, his gaze slicing through the mist to the Queen Mother's unreadable face. "Fellow Taoist, what do you think the master will do when his dog runs wild and creates trouble everywhere?" The Queen Mother paused as she lifted her cup. She understood that rule as well as anyone. The more fiercely he creates trouble and the more factions he offends, the less useful he appears to the Tao ancestor, the faster he will be discarded. Her voice was measured, composed. She rose and gave a solemn bow. "Thank you, Your Highness the Crown Prince, for intervening today and clarifying the matter. West Kunlun will remember your kindness." Remembering isn't enough. Long Chen finally took a sip and set the cup down, eyes never leaving her. He tapped the jade table with a single finger. The sound was soft, but it sent visible ripples across the entire pool. "Let's make a deal." The Queen Mother sat again, a little straighter. "What sort of deal?" "I will make the Duke of the East and his ridiculous immortal court disappear from the primordial world." He spoke as if he were suggesting a minor favor. The Queen Mother's breath hitched. "And the price?" "Your innate spirit treasure." Long Chen's gaze drifted to the center of the jade pool, to the spring eye that gushed innate water element spiritual chi. The pure water bowl. A thin crack of sound, and the jade cup in the Queen Mother's hand did not fall. It turned to the finest powder between her fingers. An icy aura poured out from her like a winter blast. The surface of the jade pool no longer lay calm. Undercurrents churned, countless lotuses drew in their buds, and the spiritual chi of the whole immortal realm recoiled. Long Chen. She omitted the honorific now, and the cold in her voice cut like frost. "The innate spirit treasure is the foundation of my Tao proving. You ask for my life." "I know." Facing an aura that could freeze the primordial spirit of a grand unity golden immortal, Long Chen poured himself another cup without a tremor. "Then the price I offer will be enough." He met her cold gaze and spoke carefully, each word heavy. "I will not only make him die, I will make him die cleanly, so cleanly that even the Tao ancestor can find no fault. In fact, the Tao ancestor will be forced to feel indebted to West Kunlun and will compensate your sect afterward." Those words shook the Queen Mother. The Duke of the East was a chess piece of the Tao ancestor. To kill him was to slap the Tao ancestor's face. Yet Long Chen claimed he would arrange it, so the Tao ancestor himself would administer the punishment and then owe West Kunlun a favor. How could that be? She swallowed and steadied herself. The Duke of the East is troublesome, but he has seen your attitude today. He cannot break your mountain-protecting formation. To truly solve this, I'd have to part with my Tao-proving treasure. That would be a great loss for West Kunlun. Is that so? Long Chen drained his cup and stood. I suppose I was presumptuous. If you deem it unworthy, then let us pretend this conversation never happened. He set his sleeves and began to leave without hesitation. As for the Duke of the East, I'll have my clansmen send word telling him to leave you be. He was frightened enough today. He shouldn't dare come back for 100 years. His steps were slow, but every word reached the Queen Mother. After 100 years, his immortal court will have strengthened. Fellow Taoist, wait and see. Wait until he has absorbed all the loose immortals unwilling to join the witch or the Yao, until he receives fresh rewards from the Tao ancestor, until he is absolutely certain. By then, your peaceful West Kunlun will be the best offering for him to secure authority with the Yao court. He nearly reached the outer rim of the jade pool. The Queen Mother's fingers, hanging at her sides, clenched. She knew Long Chen's words were possibilities, and that he wasn't posturing. He'd given her a single choice: refuse, and the Dragon Clan and the Duke of the East could settle their affairs without her. Accept, and she could avoid confrontation. Refuse, and West Kunlun would face the wrath of a maddened duke alone. Your Highness the Crown Prince, wait! Long Chen paused and turned without a smile, only a calm expression. Have you thought this through? The Queen Mother seemed to let out a long-held breath. I cannot give you the pure water bowl now. It is essential to my severing corpses and my proof of Tao, my very foundation. But she flicked her palm, and a crystal-clear jade bottle appeared, and inside 3 drops of golden liquid floated quietly. The moment the liquid manifested, the surrounding mist was cleanly sliced by an unseen edge, and the air took on a sharp, murderous tang. This is innate gang metal origin. I refined it from the Western Venus over 100,000 years and obtained exactly 3 drops. It can serve as a deposit. She looked Long Chen straight in the eye. If the Crown Prince can guarantee the Duke of the East will not set foot in West Kunlun for 1,000 years, then after 1,000 years, West Kunlun will surely reward you generously. And once I sever a corpse and reach the quasi-Saint Tao, this treasure will no longer be crucial to me. If you uphold today's agreement, then lending you the pure water bowl for 10,000 years of comprehension is not impossible. She laid her terms carefully, offering enough sincerity while stashing the largest stake in the future. Long Chen glanced at the 3 drops and allowed the faintest hint of approval. Innate 5 elements. Origin of that quality was precisely what his 24 heavens worlds lacked for evolution and consolidation. 1,000 years? He repeated, then laughed softly, a sound with an edge. Fellow Taoist underestimates Long Chen and overestimates the Duke of the East. He reached out, the jade bottle flew into his hand, and he slid it into his sleeve without another glance. 10,000 years. His voice was flat but immovable, each word like bedrock. I guarantee West Kunlun 10,000 years of peace. The Queen Mother's breath caught. Within 10,000 years, if the Duke of the East dares to bring even a single soldier to harass you. Long Chen's gaze pierced through the jade pool's mist as if he could see to Xianxia Palace. I, Long Chen, will personally go to Xianxia Palace and ask Tao ancestor Hongjun how he disciplines his dog. He cupped his hands to the Queen Mother with an almost casual air. I have received the deposit. Fellow Taoist, await good news. With that, he walked into the jade mist and disappeared. The Queen Mother stood alone, staring at the fine powder of the shattered jade cup at her feet for a long time. 10,000 years. He had used a 1,000-year deposit to secure a 10,000-year promise. What exactly did this Dragon Clan Crown Prince intend to do? Or rather, by what right did he dare to promise such a thing? Chapter 66. The Dragon Clan controls water. The Demon Clan controls the sky. After leaving West Kunlun, Long Chen did not return to the East Sea. He hovered on the clouds above endless mountain ranges, his divine thought piercing the void to reach the East Sea, Crystal Palace. Deep in the palace, Xuanwu snored like thunder. His immense body rose and fell, churning the surrounding water into chaos. Fellow Taoist, wake up. There's work to be done. Long Chen's voice resonated in Xuanwu's primordial spirit. Xuanwu jolted awake, his great turtle head lifting, eyes still heavy with sleep. Your Highness, what news now? Good news. Long Chen's tone was light. Go to the 33rd heaven and see His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor. Xuanwu shook his massive head, coral bed cracking beneath him. No, Dijun, that three-legged crow, is unbearably arrogant. Old Turtle hates dealing with him. I'm not sending you to curry favor. Long Chen's voice was calm but carried an irresistible force. I'm sending a gift he absolutely cannot refuse. Xuanwu's interest was piqued. What gift? A gift that will let his Yao heavenly court claim legitimacy and dominate the sky. Long Chen transmitted his entire plan and the arguments to back it into Xuanwu's primordial spirit. The sleepiness evaporated from the turtle's face and was replaced by shock, then admiration. Your Highness, this move not only traps the Wu clan, it even turns the Duke of the East, enfiofed by the Dao ancestor, into a thorn Dijun must pull. With this, the Duke of the East will be too occupied to bother the Queen Mother of the West. Dijun will gain immense benefits and yet owe our dragon clan a favor. Brilliant, truly brilliant. Long Chen smiled. Go. Make it a grand show. Our dragon clan is no one to be looked down on. Half a month later, above the 9 heavens at the South Heaven Gate, the gate forged from stellar essence shimmered with divine light. Xuanwu's colossal form blocked the entrance, his shadow covering the entire sea of clouds below. 2 ranks of golden-armored heavenly generals, halberds in hand, formed a battle array and faced him with nervous discipline. The pressure radiating from the ancient sacred beast made their hands tremble. Who goes there? Called the lead general, Yao Saint Yingzhao. He recognized Xuanwu, but the heavenly court's rules could not be breached. State your business. East Sea, Xuanwu, the turtle replied. By order of the Dragon Clan Crown Prince, I request an audience with His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor. Yingzhao's expression changed. The Dragon Clan Crown Prince, Long Chen, the same man who had outwitted the Dao ancestor in the West. What did he intend by sending Xuanwu? He dared not delay and transformed into a streak of light to the Lingxiao Palace. Inside the Lingxiao Palace, Dijun sat on his imperial throne, the river chart and Luo Shu unfurled behind him, their patterns slowly shifting to form the stars of the cosmos. Emperor Taiyi sat beside him, eyes closed, the Chaos bell hanging above his head with wisps of Chaos Qi trailing down. Yao Master Kunpeng and a host of other Yao saints flanked the hall, the atmosphere solemn. The Wu clan has been restless again. Zhurong and Gonggong clashed on the eastern border. Many were lost, reported Yao Saint Bai Zhe. Dijun's brows tightened. Before he could reply, Yingzhao burst in and knelt, breathless. Reporting to Your Majesty, the envoy from the East Sea, Xuanwu, requests an audience at the South Heaven Gate. A murmur ran through the hall. Xuanwu? The star map behind Dijun paused. What is he here for? Yao Master Kunpeng's eyes narrowed. We must be cautious. Xuanwu arrives at the precise moment our heavenly court is stirring the great desolation. I suspect flattery. Exactly, Guiche, hot-tempered, roared. Your Majesty, I say Long Chen is jealous and sent this old turtle to make a scene. Let me capture him and cut the dragon clan down to size. No. Emperor Taiyi opened his eyes. The chaos bell swayed, and an invisible sound wave silenced the hall. Xuanwu bears the burden of holding back the West and is protected by the heavenly Dao. To harm him would be to harm our Yao race's fortune. Dijun nodded. Summon him. I want to see what Long Chen is up to. Xuanwu's mountain-like body entered the Lingxiao Palace. Each step made the hall tremble. He cupped his claws in salute to Dijun. Xuanwu greets His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor. Dispose with the formalities, Xuanwu. Dijun's voice was calm. State your purpose. I would not be impertinent. Xuanwu smiled briefly, his voice like a tolling bell. I was sent by my crown prince to congratulate Your Majesty on establishing the heavenly court and governing the myriad stars. This is a blessing to all beings across the great desolation. Oh? Dijun raised an eyebrow. The crown prince is thoughtful. My prince says that Your Majesty's founding of the heavenly court follows both heaven and the people, while our dragon clan governs the 4 seas and regulates wind and rain. We also uphold the heavenly Dao. Many Yao gods sneered at that. Had the declining dragon clan any right to compare itself to the flourishing Yao race? Dijun said nothing, watching Xuanwu for what came next. My prince also warned that the Great Desolation hides a great danger that must be eliminated. Xuanwu's tone grew grave. What danger? Dijun asked, intrigued. The Wu clan, Xuanwu's voice rose. The Wu clan occupies the earth, scorns the heavens, and refuses to worship the Tao ancestor, honoring only Pangu. They control the turbid chi of the earth, at odds with the clear chi of the sky. Your Majesty governs. If this continues, the imbalance between clear and turbid chi will lead to catastrophe for heaven and earth. Dijun's gaze sharpened. This was precisely the worry that haunted him. What exactly do you propose? He asked bluntly. Xuanwu put away his smile and spoke with solemnity. Rather than fighting on two fronts, form an alliance. The Heavenly Court governs the sky, heaven. The Wu clan occupies the earth and controls the origin, earth. Our dragon clan manages the waterways, water. Heaven, earth, and water must be balanced. He raised his head and looked at Dijun. But now earth seeks to swallow heaven, and water is restless. Our dragon clan is willing to ally with your Majesty's Heavenly Court. The Heavenly Court governs heaven, the dragon clan governs water. Together we can suppress the earth ruled by the Wu clan. Yao Master Kunpeng laughed coldly. Sounds convenient. You expect us to help your dragon clan fend off the Wu clan, while your East Sea lies only one continent away from the Wu ancestral lands. You're just diverting trouble to the east. Exactly, Geisha snapped. You want our Heavenly Court as your cannon fodder. Dream on. Voices of doubt rose. Xuanwu remained unperturbed, his ancient eyes sweeping the hall before settling on Dijun. Do you believe the Wu clan would not turn against your Heavenly Court if unchecked? His words silenced the dissent. Xuanwu continued, What the Wu clan wants is the entire great land. What your Majesty wants is all heaven and earth. Their aims are irreconcilable. The Dragon Clan only seeks stable waters. Forming an alliance with your Majesty removes a threat for us and gains you an ally against the Wu clan. Kunpeng's tone chilled. If we are to ally, show sincerity. Empty words won't buy trust. Xuanwu seemed ready for this. My crown prince has prepared a token of sincerity. He recounted what had happened in West Kunlun. Not long ago, the Duke of the East, an immortal lord enfeoffed by the Tao ancestor, led his immortal court into West Kunlun. My prince passed by and, by chance, helped the Queen Mother of the West. Dijun's expression darkened at the mention of the Duke of the East. The man was a thorn in his side. And then, Xuanwu continued matter-of-factly, the Duke of the East's forces could not withstand a single move from my prince and fled back to the East Sea. Now the Great Desolation knows the so-called immortal court is a joke. In the sky, there can only be one sun. There can only be one heavenly court. Xuanwu enunciated each word. The Duke of the East, this false emperor, claims the Tao ancestors' authority but brings shame upon the heavens. Our dragon clan is willing to remove this stain for your Majesty. From this day on, our dragon clan will completely blockade the Duke of the East's Zifu continent, severing all its links to the Great Desolation continent. If his immortal court dares leave the East Sea, our dragon clan will slay them. His voice echoed through the hall. Your Majesty, is this sincerity sufficient? A tense silence followed. Dijun's breathing deepened as realization dawned. Long Chen had offered him a tremendous gift. The Duke of the East was a pawn of the Tao ancestor, someone Dijun could not directly strike without grave consequences. But if the Dragon Clan crippled and disgraced the Duke within the East Sea, Dijun's heavenly court would be the only true heaven above and below, no longer rivaled. This was not just an alliance. It was a pledge of loyalty bought with the life and prestige of another. After a long pause, Dijun exhaled and the imperial weight eased from his throne. Good. He stood, his voice carrying through the 9 heavens. Issue my decree. From this day forth, the Yao Race Heavenly Court and the East Sea Dragon Clan are officially allied. For 10,000 years, we shall not invade one another, and together we shall resist the Wu clan. Chapter 67. The Heavenly Court rewards you, and the dragon locks the Purple Palace. Not long after Xuanwu left, a column of golden light descended from the 33rd heaven. It pierced the sea of clouds and reached straight to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Dijun's majestic, resonant voice, empowered by the immortal court's luck, became a heavenly decree that rolled across the 4 poles of the Great Desolation. By imperial decree, the East Sea Dragon Clan, in accordance with heaven's will and the will of man, has rendered meritorious service in suppressing the four seas. We hereby confer upon Dragon Clan Crown Prince Longchen the title Myriad Waters True God, to lead all waters under heaven and to form a 10,000-year alliance with our immortal court to jointly resist the witch race. The myriad races of the Great Desolation were stunned into silence. On Kunlun Mountain, Mount Sumeru, and in the depths of the Sea of Blood, countless secluded great experts cast their divine thought eastward. None had expected that Dijun, upon establishing the immortal court, would first seek to win over the Dragon Clan, a force long withdrawn from the center stage. The court's move was a new kind of chess play, and no one could fully grasp its purpose. East Sea, Crystal Palace. Longchen's fingertip hovered over a golden token. It had been condensed from the immortal court's luck. The four divine characters, Myriad Waters True God, on it pulsed, autonomously drawing in and emitting water element spiritual qi. He glanced at it, then casually tossed it to Ao Dong, the East Sea Dragon Lord beside him, as if throwing a pebble. Uncle Ao Dong, accept this award from the immortal court. Ao Dong reflexively reached out. The token landed in his palm, and a heavy surge of Yao race luck pressed down. The veteran Great Luo's hand sank as if under tremendous weight. This was more than a title. It was the immortal court's recognition, a tiger skin to leverage power. Ao Dong held the token, lips moving, voice dry with age. Crown Prince, this is far too important. It's just a title, Longchen said calmly, as if discussing a triviality. Next, you will lead the Sea Suppression Bureau and do one thing. Ao Dong straightened, gripping the token. Age seemed to fall away, and he regained the bearing of his old Dragon Han tribulation days. He dropped to one knee, head bowed. Please command, Crown Prince. Seal off Zifu continent. Longchen spoke 4 words. The water that had been flowing slowly through the Crystal Palace stopped. Ao Dong looked up, dragon eyes wide with astonishment, but Longchen ignored him and continued. I want that immortal island completely cut off from the East Sea. Let not a single fly enter, nor a single drop of water flow out. He fixed Ao Dong with a final look and added, if the Duke of the East or that so-called immortal court show their faces, kill them on sight. No need to report. Ao Dong's fingers tightened on the token. His knuckles cracked faintly. A tyrannical exhilaration, suppressed for untold eons, flared up from the depths of his aging dragon body and surged to his heavenly spirit. He slammed his forehead to the hard palace floor, cracking it. As the Crown Prince commands. With that one order, the long-dormant East Sea stirred. Tens of thousands of Dragon Clan elites, led by Ao Dong, became a blue torrent that blotched out the sky, making no attempt to hide, and surged for the sea area around Zifu continent. On Zifu continent, inside the palace complex shrouded in immortal mist, a circle of immortal officials were flattering the Duke of the East. Congratulations, immortal head! Daijun of that immortal court is nothing special. In the end, he still follows the Dao ancestors' decree. Exactly. What happened with West Kunlun was merely the Queen Mother of the West stepping out of line. It doesn't affect your prestige. The Yao race rules the heavens, while our immortal court rules the earth. A division of power is imminent. Duke of the East sat in the main seat, stroking his long beard, clearly pleased. The shadow of defeat at West Kunlun had been eased by their flattery. Then a commotion sounded outside the hall. An immortal official stumbled in, pale. Immortal head! No, it's bad! The Duke frowned. What is there to alarm about? What's the matter? The official trembled, pointing out toward the sea. The sea is gone. The Dragon Clan's army has arrived. They've drained our sea. What? The Duke of the East stepped out onto the balcony, and the sight froze the smugness on his face. Centered on Zifu continent, the seawater for hundreds of millions of miles was receding at terrifying speed. This was not a mere divine ability. It was a higher authority. The Dragon Clan had mobilized the origin of the East Sea itself, forcibly changing the law governing the waters. As the sea pulled back, it revealed a wet, dark seabed and a colossal, bottomless trench. Zifu continent sat like a lonely rock in a drained basin, exposed and ridiculous. All the immortals on the island stared in disbelief. On the trench's 4 walls, innate goo-water divine thunder braided itself into being from the air. At first, only wisps of electric arcs, they quickly interwove into a vast blue-purple lightning net that wrapped the heavens and earth, firmly encasing Zifu continent. Above that net, Aodong's colossal dragon head, like a mountain, slowly rose. His golden eyes showed no emotion as he looked down at the panicked immortals. "Dragon Clan! Long Chen! What is the meaning of this?" the Duke shouted. He finally reacted, flames of pure yang qi igniting the surrounding immortal qi. "I am the head of the male immortals personally appointed by the Tao ancestor. How dare you be so presumptuous?" But the Dragon Clan beyond the lightning net did not answer. They watched him like one regards an object for inspection, coldly, without pity. "Where is the immortal court? Where is that brat Di Jun? How dare he do this?" The Duke went mad. He sacrificed his dragon head staff, transforming it into a golden beam, and charged wildly at the lightning net. "Break it for this venerable one." The dragon head staff, laden with pure yang immortal power, struck the lightning net. Sizzle. A deafening explosion. The staff's pure yang light could not last even a breath before it was snuffed out, suppressed and violently repelled by the furious Gui water lightning. The staff flew back into the Duke's hands, his mouth opened wide in shock as the treasure's spiritual light dimmed by 3 ranks. Aodong's voice, like heaven's decree from the 9 heavens, rolled down. "Duke of the East, this is Dragon Clan Forbidden Land. By order of the Crown Prince, any who cross the boundary shall be killed without mercy." There was a trace of pity in his tone. "Times have changed, Duke of the East. The Tao ancestor's name can no longer protect you." The Duke looked at the Dragon Clan's sky-blotting host, felt the terrifying power that stirred the origin of the entire East Sea, and his last shred of hope vanished. He had been abandoned. The Tao ancestor had not intervened. The immortal court had become the Dragon Clan's partner. He, Duke of the East, venerable head of the male immortals, was a sacrificial offering Long Chen presented to Dijun, proof of the Dragon Clan's worth. West Kunlun, Jade Pond. The Queen Mother of the West waved her hand and dispersed the water mirror. The image of the Duke of the East vanished. The female immortal beside her spoke in a low voice. "Your Majesty, this Dragon Clan Crown Prince's actions are so presumptuous. Is he not afraid of the Tao ancestor's punishment?" "Presumptuous?" The Queen Mother smiled faintly, shaking her head. "This is not presumptuous. It's an open scheme." He calculated that Dijun needed a legitimate excuse to suppress the Duke of the East. "As for the Tao ancestor," the Queen Mother sighed, "what the Tao ancestor wants is balance, chess pieces. When a chess piece like the Duke of the East can no longer even stand on the board, he has already lost his value. The Tao ancestor will not move for a useless piece." She looked at the female immortal and gave a solemn order. "Pass down my command. From now on, my West Kunlun disciples are not to enter the Four Seas area unless absolutely necessary. And if you meet the Dragon Clan, treat them courteously." 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Dijun watched the island imprisoned by lightning in the water mirror and said nothing. The relaxed atmosphere in the hall betrayed his approval. Yao Master Kunpeng stepped forward sharply. "Your Majesty, this Long Chen indeed has the heart of a hero. He used the immortal court's name for his own ends, and incidentally, did us an immense favor. This man must be guarded against." Emperor Taiyi, who had been meditating with closed eyes, opened them. The chaos bell hanging above him trembled slightly. An invisible ripple muffled Kunpeng's next words. "He is not borrowing, it is an alliance." Taiyi's voice was calm and sovereign. "He did what we found inconvenient to do. From now on, there will be no second immortal court in heaven and on earth. We have received this gift without loss." Dijun finally spoke, glancing at Kunpeng and sweeping his gaze over the gathered Yao gods. "Taiyi is right. This Dragon Clan, this blade, is very useful." He waved a hand. "Issue this order. All under the immortal court are not to interfere with any of the Dragon Clan's actions in the East Sea. As for the matter of Duke of the East, we know nothing." Kunlun Mountain. Inside Jade Pure Palace, Yuanqi Tianzun told his disciple Guangchengzi, "Do you see? Those creatures born from dampness and eggs act so crudely, resorting only to schemes and trickery. They will never truly enter the grand halls of refinement." Inside Upper Purity Palace, the Grand Master of Heaven slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. "Excellent, excellent. Imprisoning a false emperor by thunder. That's righteous retribution. This Dragon Clan Crown Prince's temperament suits me." The sound of clashing swords in Bu Palace grew a few degrees more lively. In Grand Purity Palace, Laozi remained with eyes closed, the firelight from the pill furnace reflecting off his composed face. After a long moment, he sighed softly. The water is about to overflow. West, Mount Sumeru. Taoist Jain's sorrowful face hardened into stern resolve. Senior brother, the waters of the Great Desolation grow ever murkier. The Dragon Clan rises again. The Yao race dominates, and the Witch race occupies the land. When will our West finally see its day? Taoist Junti held the Seven Treasures wonderful tree and brushed it gently. Precious light flowed. Senior brother, when the water is murky, it's easier to fish. His eyes glittered. This Longchen is a huge variable. If he can ally with the Immortal Court, he may not be unwilling to cooperate with our West. What he seeks is luck, karma, and the revival of the Dragon Clan. What the Immortal Court can grant, our West may also be able to provide. When the time comes, it might be worth a try. Chapter 68. Reject the teachings of the saints and cultivate the Tao with your own body. 10,000 years in the great expanse of the prehistoric universe were only a few cycles of blossoms and fallen leaves. Above the 33rd heaven, the prestige of the demon court already eclipsed countless stars. Across the boundless lands, the Witch Clan's footsteps, crushing mountains and rivers, proclaimed their dominion. The East Sea, the blue, lightning-streaked sea that imprisoned Zifu continent, had long since become a forbidden coordinate on the prehistoric universe's maps. When great powers glanced its way, they could not help but remember the tragic fate of the male immortal chief, personally appointed by Tao ancestor, and the desolation of his end. The Dragon Clan, in these 10,000 years, had chosen an almost eerie silence. Within the Crystal Palace, at the sea eye's deepest point, the sky-reaching Renwater peach tree was rooted, its 3,000 immortal fruits exuding a thick purple qi. Their fragrance sweetened even the salty air of the East Sea. Beneath the divine tree, all the Dragon Clan's high-ranking members had gathered. They stared at the shimmering fruits with burning eyes and held their breath, as if facing the future of the whole clan. Longchen's voice was not loud, but it suppressed the heartbeats of every Dragon Clan powerhouse present. Today, the Renwater peaches have ripened. This day will mark the great resurgence of our Dragon Clan. His gaze swept to the candle dragon at the front. His voice was as deep and firm as an abyss. Elder Candle Dragon, your disciple is here. The Candle Dragon bowed. His hoarse voice carried the weight of eons. You have guarded the Dragon Clan until now. Your merits surpass the entire clan. Longchen spoke deliberately. You shall receive 9. At his words, 9 of the most deeply purple Renwater peaches detached from the treetop and transformed into 9 streaks of light that hovered precisely before the Candle Dragon. The eyes of the ancient dragon, who had witnessed ages change, shone with tears. He extended his gnarled claw with slow, solemn movements, as if performing a sacred ritual. When the 9 immortal fruits settled into his palm, an overwhelming weight descended upon him. His arm sagged under it. This weight was law, life, and the hope of the Dragon Clan's revival. Your Highness, the Candle Dragon's voice choked. This old servant is ashamed. The Dragon Clan has dwindled so far, and I have merely lingered on. How can I be worthy? Elder, Longchen interrupted him, the power in his voice undeniable. What is past is yesterday's death. From this day forward, our Dragon Clan shall be reborn. He lifted his voice and swept his gaze across the gathered elders. Aoguang, Dragon Lord of the East Sea. Aonan, Dragon Lord of the South Sea. Aoshi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea. Aobei, Dragon Lord of the North Sea. Step forward and receive your decree. The 4 Dragon Lords' hearts trembled. They immediately stepped out and kneeled on one knee. You have guarded the 4 seas. Your efforts are meritorious. Each of you is granted 6. 24 Renwater peaches flew and hovered before them. Your subjects, thank your Highness for this great favor. The Dragon Lords' voices trembled as they accepted the fruits, their fingertips burning. The other elders shall each receive 3. Purple sweet dew fruits fell and landed accurately in the hands of every senior dragon. Those who received them felt their dragon bodies quake with excitement. The life essence and pure law of the fruits surged, begging to be consumed and refined on the spot. Longchen watched their ecstatic faces and calmly announced the future order. This tree is the foundation of our dragon clan. From now on, our clan's children can exchange their contributions for Ren water peaches. His voice rose, carrying an infectious power like thunder, exploding in every dragon's heart. I hope that one day, every warrior of our dragon clan will be able to consume this immortal fruit, their bloodline returning to its origin, each and every one of them like a true dragon. Your Highness is sagacious. The dragon clan shall rise. Their roars were like mountains and tides, making the Crystal Palace vibrate. It was the most primitive and sincere cry born from the depths of every dragon bloodline after untold suppression. You may withdraw. Longchen waved his hand. Find a place to go into seclusion. Do not waste this opportunity. As you command. The dragons suppressed their emotions, bowed deeply to Longchen, and then retreated in order. In an instant, the vast sea was left empty except for him. After 10,000 years of cultivation, Longchen's power had reached the absolute peak of the Grand Unity Golden Immortal realm, with only a thin sheet of paper separating him from the quasi-saint realm. But that step was like a chasm. Slaying the three corpses, the method of becoming a saint declared by Hongjun, the righteous path to heaven that countless great powers sought, stood before him. Longchen closed his eyes. Within his primordial spirit, the body of his immortal sword trembled clearly and resonantly. He activated his ultimate sword intent, turning it into an invisible, formless primordial spirit heavenly blade, and struck at the strongest thought lodged in his origin, the impulse to kill, dominate, and control. He intended to sever his evil corpse. The heavenly blade fell. Its edge struck as if against primordial, stubborn rock, and only silent sparks flew. Those thoughts of killing and domination were entwined with his Azure Dragon origin, like the roots of an ancient tree sunk deep into the earth, utterly inseparable. Again. Longchen pushed his primordial spirit to the limit. The endless killing chi of his immortal sword nearly solidified into a sharper blade, and he struck once more. This time, the blade cut a sliver. What followed, however, was not the ease of severed will, but agonizing pain as his divine soul was rent. His origin roared and resisted. The domineering, controlling wills did not fall away. They counterattacked, racing along the primordial spirit heavenly blade toward the core of his will. A mouthful of scorching golden dragon blood burst from him, spilling into the dim seawater like a tragically beautiful blood-red lotus. This is wrong. Longchen opened his eyes. There was no frustration in them, only a clarity that had cut through the fog. Hongjun's Tao is subtraction. He spoke into the empty sea. Slay the good, slay the evil, slay the ego, and in the end return to that pure, inactive true self aligned with the heavenly Tao. But my Tao is addition, it is control, it is command. His voice rang with resolve. Good thoughts are me, evil thoughts are me, dominance is me, control is me. All of it is my power, all of it serves my use. How could it be severed? Why should it be severed? If I sever them, I am no longer Longchen. From the foundation of his Tao, he diverged from the path Hongjun had proclaimed. His eyes settled on the Ren water peach tree before him, rooted in the East Sea dragon vein and drinking endless water chi. The tree absorbed nutrients and bore fruit. A thought wild enough to overturn the prehistoric universe's understanding slammed into his mind. Since I cannot cut them away outwardly, I will grow inwardly. Hongjun lets beings entrust their thoughts to innate spirit treasures, sever them from the body, and achieve incarnations. But why rely on outside objects? This body is the best soil. This dragon vein origin is the strongest foundation. Let my 4 limbs and 100 bones be mountains and rivers. Let my meridians and chi blood be rivers, lakes and seas. Let my primordial spirit will be the supreme heavenly Tao. Within my body, I will recreate a true world. This was not merely cultivation. It was the creation of a Tao, a supreme path never seen in the prehistoric universe and unique to Longchen. That's what I'll do. He no longer hesitated. He would take the Jiayi wood over which the Eastern Azure Dragon presided as his first attempt. A wisp of pure Azure Dragon origin chi flowed from his fingertip, condensing into a verdant Tao seed that seemed to enclose a nascent universe. He activated the 10,000 waters converging dragon pearl. A gentle water light enveloped the seed and flowed upstream through his meridians, stopping precisely within the bones of his left arm. The Tao seed was implanted. A tearing agony erupted. The bones of his left arm groaned as an invisible force crushed them into powder and reshaped them. His flesh and blood were hurled into a cosmic furnace, melting and decomposing, then reorganizing. His meridians snapped inch by inch and were forcibly rewoven by a savage, domineering life force, twisting into new, profound patterns. They were no longer meridians, but tree roots. Invisible hands worked inside his arm, using his flesh and bones as materials under a brand new, unprecedented set of rules. Cold sweat beaded on Longchen's brow and rolled down his chiseled face. Yet his eyes were clearer than ever. His will was unshakable. He felt a new, pure origin power of wood rising from nothing, breaking through soil and growing vigorously inside his left arm. When he slowly opened his palm, the skin of his left hand was crystal clear like green jade. Beneath it, wisps of woody grain flowed, exuding an endless aura of life. It was done. His left arm was no longer merely flesh and blood, but a living magic treasure containing the origin of Jia Wood. Eastern Azure Dragon, Jia Wood, he murmured. Immediately, he sensed a new conflict within his body. This nascent wood power clashed with his dragon clan's immense water element. Although it could be suppressed for now, in the long term, it would lead to imbalance and the collapse of his Tao foundation. He needed to quickly acquire top-tier innate spiritual roots of other attributes. Western White Tiger Gold, Southern Vermilion Bird Fire, Central Qilin Earth, he mused. If I can gather all 5 elements' spiritual roots and implant them within my body, the 5 elements will cycle, endlessly generating and supporting one another. Then my body will be the world, and my Tao will be heaven and earth. He let out a soft laugh, full of absolute confidence and disdain. Why bother slaying the 3 corpses? I will form my own school. I am the Tao ancestor. Top-tier innate spiritual roots, supreme treasures that could suppress a clan's luck, were rare and difficult to obtain. This was his greatest secret and could not be entrusted to a warrior like the Candle Dragon. The task was too large, his methods too blunt. Longchen needed someone he could trust, discreet, meticulous, and capable of quietly searching the prehistoric universe's murky waters for treasures. Moments later, an image surfaced in his mind, a figure who had always followed behind the Candle Dragon, head bowed, slightly stooped. Chapter 69, The Weakest Minister, the Most Ferocious Sword. Deep within the Crystal Palace, at the Prime Minister's residence, there was none of the shimmering grandeur of the Dragon Palace. No luminous pearls, no inlaid jade. Instead, jade slips and bamboo scrolls rose like endless mountain ranges, piled to the heavens. The scent of old ink blended with the salty damp of the deep sea, forming an atmosphere that seemed to belong to time itself. Prime Minister Turtle's massive body was hunched behind one of those paper mountains. His ancient carapace was dusted with an unshakable layer of official grime. He held a brush with a purple tip, staring at a jade slip that recorded supplies sent to the North Sea, so worried his beard seemed nearly plucked clean. Light and shadow twisted silently before him. A figure stepped into being without a sound, as if he had always been standing in that dark. The brush in Prime Minister Turtle's hand clattered to the floor, blotting the jade slip with ink. His cloudy old eyes shot up in terror. When he recognized the newcomer, his entire body involuntarily recoiled, nearly toppling over. Your Highness," he blurted. This old minister had no knowledge of your Highness's arrival. I deserve 10,000 deaths." Prime Minister Turtle scrambled from behind his scrolls, awkward and clumsy, and prostrated himself in a kneeling salute. "Prime Minister, dispense with the formalities." Long Chen's voice was flat. He extended a hand, and a gentle but irresistible current of water steadied Prime Minister Turtle. His gaze swept across the mountain of documents. "You have worked hard on the internal affairs of the East Sea these years." The sudden expression of concern made the Prime Minister's divine soul tremble in surprise. He waved his hands in denial, overwhelmed. "No hardship at all. It is this old minister's duty and honor to share the Dragon Clan's burdens." Long Chen did not linger on pleasantries. His voice grew solemn, each word heavy. "You have done well in your duties. Now I have a more important matter to entrust to you." Those words fell like 2 invisible mountain peaks on Prime Minister Turtle's heart. A chill crept up his spine, an instinctive warning of immense trouble, honed by countless eons. He knew this was far more than organizing paperwork or dispatching resources. "Your Highness, please command," he said, lowering his head with a resolve that tried to hide his fear. "Even if this old minister must sacrifice his life, I will not hesitate to die 10,000 times for your Highness." "You must keep your life," Longchen replied indifferently. "Only then can the task be accomplished." He tapped the seawater with a slender fingertip. The currents converged and instantly formed four profound innate Tao patterns: the sharpness of metal, the vitality of wood, the explosiveness of fire, and the profundity of earth. Four types of origin chi. "Go to the great desolate continent for me and find the top-tier innate spiritual roots of these four attributes." Find treasures? Prime Minister Turtle stared at the patterns, his wrinkled face collapsing into bitter disbelief. He wailed almost tearfully, "Your Highness, aren't you asking me to risk my life? This old minister's cultivation can't even beat the big lobsters at the palace gates. This shell of mine isn't even as hard as the North Sea's profound ice. If I leave the East Sea, any gust of astral wind could scatter my soul." The more he spoke, the more aggrieved he became. Tears blurred his face. "If I run into some unreasonable demon king, seeing my humble origins, I'll be pinched and stewed into soup on the spot. My shell will be refined into a treasure, my meat made into longevity stew. My divine soul won't even know peace. I truly cannot do this." "I know." Long Chen's expression remained unreadable, his eyes streaked with a few tears that did not change his calm. "There is a reason I am sending you. I will not send you to fight, and I will not send you to your death." He pointed a finger. It ignored space and time, arriving first despite being thrown late, and pressed precisely at Prime Minister Turtle's glabella. Prime Minister Turtle's divine soul shuddered violently. The Prime Minister's residence vanished from his vision like mist. In its place stretched endless golden threads across the universe, mountain ranges and ley lines of the great desolate, the courses of rivers and seas, the circulation of the earth's spiritual chi. His sight penetrated the crust and reached the deepest ley lines, where faint but extremely pure halos pulsed with the breath of the world. A vast, overbearing cultivation technique surged into his sea of consciousness. "This technique is the heavenly secret dragon-seeking art," Long Chen's voice echoed directly in his mind. "It is not a martial art. It is a seeking technique, fit for someone who is naturally close to divination. With it, the great desolate's ley lines will be as clear as the lines on your palm. The hidden locations of spiritual roots will reveal themselves." Prime Minister Turtle struggled to comprehend. His cloudy eyes flared with astonished brilliance. It was a supreme, tailor-made, miraculous technique. The light in his eyes dimmed only briefly before worry returned. "But even if I find them, what then? The Great Desolate is crowded with mighty figures. Golden immortals are everywhere. Anyone could crush this old minister with a single finger. Even if you find the treasures, you won't be able to keep them." "You can't keep them," Long Chen said, lips curving into an unreadable arc. "But something else can." He flipped his palm. No dazzling aura erupted, no thunder split the heavens. A dim, cracked bronze sword hovered quietly in his hand. It looked unremarkable, an old blade dug from some ruin. The moment Prime Minister Turtle saw it, an indescribable tremor, rooted in the origin of life, seized his divine soul. His Tao heart shook. That was not merely a weapon. It was end, destruction, the origin of killing that reduced all things to nothingness. There were no mountains of corpses in his vision, yet desperate wails of fallen heavenly beings exploded in his ears. The lingering Tao sounds of saints bleeding and heaven and earth mourning surged, stirring a storm of ruin in his divine soul. Prime Minister Turtle's legs went weak. He collapsed, teeth chattering, unable to form a word. That sword, this peerless blade, had drunk the blood of mighty figures during the Tao demon tribulation. Even saints feared it. "This journey is not for combat, but to steal heavenly secrets," Long Chen said, his voice steady as a needle that calmed a roaring sea. "Innate spiritual roots are protected by great luck. Forcibly taking them will attract karma and alert those in Xianxia Palace. Your key is not in taking, but in hiding." He flicked a finger. The sword hummed, and a soft, profound golden light of karma wrapped its body, skillfully veiling the supreme killing intent that could shred a Grand Unity Golden Immortal's mind. It let no trace leak out. This sword followed me to suppress the Western ancestral vein and bears immeasurable karma. This layer of golden light is enough to conceal your heavenly secrets. Unless a saint deliberately searches, they will not see through you. It is not for you to kill, Longchen continued, his mouth forming a chilling arc. It is to make the Great Desolate unable to see you. If someone truly reckless collides with you, at most a quasi-saint below may die with one stroke. Their past karma will be wiped clean, and no one will be able to trace you in the heavenly records. Prime Minister Turtle stared at the sword, slowly understanding. This was not a weapon in the conventional sense. It was a pass through the Great Desolate, a talisman even saints would find invisible. It was the fiercest sword, tailor-made for him, the weakest of ministers. Your Highness, tears streamed down his face. He reached out with trembling hands as if receiving a sacred relic. The ancient blade sank into his palms, light as a feather. Additionally, Longchen handed him another jade slip. I've deduced a few clues. Prioritize these locations. In the southern bright continent, the undying volcano may hide a top-tier fire origin route. In the central continent, beneath the ruins of the Qilin clan's ancestral land, there may be a legacy left by Qilin. As for the western Zheng metal, Longchen gave him a dragon scale that shimmered with purple light. Go to West Kunlun and present this scale to the Queen Mother of the West. She owes me a debt of karma. She will help. The last GIE would, no rush. I have other plans for that. Having arranged everything, Longchen patted Prime Minister Turtle's shoulder. The frail shoulder somehow seemed capable of bearing the weight of the 4 seas and 8 desolates. Go. Remember, your life is more important than the spiritual roots. It doesn't matter if you can't find them. My dragon clan has all the time in the world. Yes! Prime Minister Turtle gripped the trap immortal sword and the jade slip. His aged back straightened inch by inch, as if a dark spear had pierced 10,000 fathoms of sea. He performed a flawless bow to his lord. This old minister will not fail your highness's trust. Then he turned and left. His steps no longer trembled with age. They carried a resolute forward momentum. As Prime Minister Turtle vanished into the dark of the deep sea, Longchen's gaze was as deep as an abyss. Professional matters must be handled by professionals. A prime minister skilled in heavenly secrets, concealed by the trap immortal sword, would be the most inconspicuous yet deadliest shadow in the Great Desolate. The first piece has been set. Longchen looked up, his eyes piercing through the endless ocean to the shore of the East Sea and the purple mansion continent, where myriad immortals gathered. Chapter 70. Let me ask the Emperor of Heaven, does this alliance still count? It turned out Longchen had overestimated the Duke of the East's backbone, but he had also underestimated how far that man would go courting death. Locking down the Zifu continent was not the end. It was the fuse for a far greater storm. The Duke himself lay trapped beneath a web of lightning, suffering the incessant agony of Gi-water divine lightning day and night. His pure Yangdao foundation was being eaten away, his life worse than death. Yet he was, after all, the head of male immortals personally appointed by the Dao ancestor, and the immortal court's roots had already burrowed into every corner of the great desolate continent. Before the Dragon Clan fully sealed him, he spent the last of his primordial spirit to send out several talismans burned with his origin blood. Those blood-colored talismans were like sparks dropped into boiling oil, instantly igniting every remaining immortal court force across the Great Desolate. A public opinion storm swept the eastern Great Desolate. Unable to strike the Dragon Clan within the 4 seas, the immortal court's supporters attacked its reputation instead. Have you heard? That so-called Dragon Clan Crown Prince Longchen isn't even an innate divine saint. He's a remnant soul of a chaos demon god, possessed and bent on destroying the world. The Dragon Clan imprisoned the immortal head to harvest the primordial spirit of countless immortals on the island, refining ominous weapons to overthrow heaven and earth, just like in the days of the Dragon Han. Oh, our immortal head sacrificed himself for the peace of the Great Desolate, yet he was imprisoned. His fate is unknown. The righteous path of immortals is in danger. Lies, repeated by countless mouths, grew more frightening than the truth. In the eyes of the Great Desolate, the Dragon Clan fell from heroic sea guardians to demonic conspirators. The storm didn't stop at words. Fanatical immortal court adherents began launching bloody campaigns against water mansions, river gods, and even small loose cultivator schools with minor water bloodlines that had ties to the Dragon Clan, under the banner of exterminating devil-head accomplices and upholding the righteous path of immortals. They seized immortal caves by force, plundered spiritual veins, wiped out entire schools to seize treasures, and then casually labeled every atrocity collusion with Dragon Clan evildoers. East Sea, Crystal Palace. Inside the main hall, the seawater itself seemed frozen and stagnant, heavy enough to suffocate the divine soul. A Xianxia commander in charge of intelligence, voice trembling, read the latest dispatch from the Great Desolate Continent. On the eastern Great Desolate, Blackwater Marsh, Dragon King Ao Shen has fallen in battle. The commander's tone was strained. Ao Shen was a named disciple of Ao Shi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, guarding the Great Marsh for 30,000 years without fault. 3 days ago, 3 loose immortals of the Immortal Court, Li Chunyang, Zhang Daoling, and Wang Changsheng, each in the late stage of Golden Immortal, launched an attack on the Dragon King's mansion, claiming collusion with demonic dragons. Ao Shen stood no chance. The 370 clansmen in his mansion, regardless of age, were all massacred. The spiritual vein was drained. The area has become a dead land. Ao Shen's dragon soul was taken and publicly refined into a soul pill by Li Chunyang to boost his cultivation. Bang! A jade slip slammed onto the palace floor and shattered into glittering powder. Ao Shi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, trembled as his ancient body shuddered, golden dragon eyes bloodshot with veins ferocious beyond measure. "Stop!" he roared at the Xianxia commander, voice hoarse and breaking. "Crown Prince." Ao Shi spun toward the motionless figure on the throne and dropped to both knees. His hard dragon head hit the ground with a dull thud. "This old subject requests permission to fight." He raised his head. His crimson eyes had no tears, only a fury that could burn the 4 seas. Ao Shen, this old subject, watched him grow. He was honest and dutiful. Because his mansion displayed a tribute painting of our dragon clan, he and his clan were wiped out. South of Mount Buzhou, the Carp Demon clan in Yumeng Marsh have offered tribute to my West Sea for generations, living peacefully. Because their chief visited the East Sea for worship a century ago, they were branded demon race vassals, and their entire clan was exterminated, tens of thousands turned into a pool of blood and mud. In the North Continent, the Cold River Water Mansion was breached by the Immortal Court's agents. The Water Lord was dismembered and his divine position usurped. Crown Prince, this is no longer mere slander. The Duke of the East's actions are digging up the roots of our dragon clan. He severs our clan's luck on the continent. Ao Shi's voice trembled with uncontrollable sobs. Most beings in the Great Desolate are ignorant and easily deceived. If this continues, even if our dragon clan is confined to the 4 seas, eventually we will be despised by the heaven and earth of the Great Desolate, repeating the mistakes of the Dragon Han era. Then we will be solitary souls in heaven and earth, bound by karma, doomed to eternal damnation. Please, Crown Prince, give the order. Ao Shi kowtowed again, shaking the Crystal Palace. This old subject will personally lead the West Sea Dragon Army, along with my elder brother Ao Dong, to flatten the Zifu continent and hang Duke of the East's head outside the South Heaven Gate. Set things right. This old subject requests to fight. Below him, Ao Nan, Dragon Lord of the South Sea, Ao Bei, Dragon Lord of the North Sea, and other elders knelt, emotions high. Only Long Chen on the throne remained perfectly still. He did not even glance at Ao Shi. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the armrest carved with dragon patterns. Tap, tap, tap. Each beat landed like a metronome on the dragon's rapidly pounding hearts, and the rage on the verge of eruption was oddly calmed by that steady rhythm. After a long moment, the tapping stopped. Long Chen's calm voice filled the hall. No rush. Those 2 small words carried an unshakable weight and halted Ao Shi's rage in an instant. Let him jump, Long Chen finally said, fixing his gaze on Ao Shi with deep, untroubled eyes. The higher he jumps, the more fiercely the Immortal Court behind him will stir the pot, the harder they will fall. Ao Shi looked up, eyes full of confusion and fear. Crown Prince, this is an idle noise. This is a steel blade to the bone. Every day our forces on the continent are uprooted. If we wait much longer, Hearts will scatter, luck will be severed, and it will truly be too late. Longchen rose and stepped down from the throne. He didn't answer immediately, but instead asked, Uncle Aoshi, tell me, what is the current identity of our dragon clan? Aoshi blinked, instinctively answering, It is the Lord of the Four Seas, the East Sea Dragon Clan. Not accurate enough. Longchen shook his head, his voice reaching every elder in the hall. I, Longchen, was conferred by the Heavenly Court as the Myriad Waters' true god. Our dragon clan is the Heavenly Court's 10,000-year ally to the Great Desolate. He went on, Why did Dijun give me that title? Why did he form an alliance with our clan? Before Aoshi could reply, Longchen answered himself, his tone colder. Because he needs our dragon clan to restrain the Four Seas and stabilize his rear. More importantly, he wants to use us to strike at the Duke of the East. Longchen stepped right in front of Aoshi and swept his gaze across all the elders. And now, those supporters of the Duke of the East, under the slogan Exterminate Devil-Head Accomplices, are massacring our vassals and tearing down the reputation the Heavenly Emperor personally bestowed on us. Whose face is being slapped by this? He asked. Aoshi's whole body shook as if struck by lightning. A thought crawled up from his gut and made him shiver all over. It's our dragon clan, no, and the Heavenly Court. You're right. A cold smile curled at the corner of Longchen's mouth, chilling in the dark, deep seawater. Dijun announced to the Great Desolate, on behalf of the Heavenly Emperor, that our dragon clan is the Heavenly Court of the Yao race's 10,000-year ally. As soon as that pronouncement was made, the Duke of the East's forces began exterminating all those so-called Dragon Clan accomplices. It's not only our faces being slapped, those blows land from afar on the 33rd heaven, on the face of His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor. Duke of the East wants to rule the earth. Dijun wants to rule the heavens. But now the people of this Lord of the Earth are openly massacring the vassals of the Heavenly Court's ally and branding the Myriad Waters' true god, bestowed by the Heavenly Emperor himself as a chaos demon god. This is no longer slander. Longchen's voice hardened. It's a challenge. It's an open trampling of the Heavenly Emperor's authority. Aoshi finally understood. A coldness shot from his tailbone to the crown of his head. He looked at this young crown prince and for the first time felt awe born of wisdom, far more terrifying than any raw power. Does the crown prince intend to borrow the Heavenly Court's blade? Aoshi asked, voice hoarse. Not borrow. Longchen corrected him. It will be a public conspiracy. We are allies, he said. If an ally is publicly called a devil-head, if his vassals are wantonly massacred while the Heavenly Court does nothing, then that 10,000-year alliance becomes the biggest joke in the Great Desolate. Where will Dijun's face be? Where will the prestige of his Yao race Heavenly Court be? He fixed Aoshi with a steady look and gave his orders. Draft a petition immediately. Do not embellish. Record exactly what happened at Blackwater Marsh, Yunmeng Marsh, and the other sites, truthfully, with all the tragedies. Then choose an envoy, an elder from the dragon clan of the oldest generation and the steadiest temperament. Have him take the shattered bones of those 370 water clansmen from Blackwater Marsh and pack them into a box. Have him take the blood-soaked soil from Yunmeng Marsh, saturated with the blood of tens of thousands of carp demons, and put it into a cauldron. Then have him personally travel to the 33rd heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Longchen's voice remained indifferent and majestic, tinged with icy mockery. Once he's in the palace, he is to speak nothing, complain nothing, and he must certainly not ask the Heavenly Court to send troops. Instead, in front of all the Yao gods of the court, he will present that box of shattered bones and that cauldron of blood-soaked soil. Then he will ask His Majesty a single question. Longchen's gaze seemed to pierce through the Crystal Palace all the way to the Lingxiao Palace. Ask, Your Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor, is this your promised alliance? War. Chapter 71. The Emperor of Heaven was furious, and the bell rang to destroy the Immortal Palace. 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Divine light pooled here. The ripple of the Tao fell deathly quiet. The atmosphere in the hall was so oppressive that even the golden immortal primordial spirits trembled. Drifting motes of light moved thickly and slowly, as if trapped in amber. Dijun sat on the supreme imperial throne, expressionless. In the depths of his eyes, the golden flames of the great sun burned, and the courses of countless stars seemed to collapse and reform. In the center of the hall, a shattered box of bones and a cauldron of blood-soaked earth were displayed like mute witnesses. The silence they carried was more terrifying to the divine soul than the loudest cries. The Dragon Clan envoy's blunt question had long since died away into the air, but its echo had left an indelible mark in the hearts of every Yao god. His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor, is this your promised alliance? Dead silence. A fatal, suffocating silence. At last, Yao Master Kunpeng of the Yao rank stirred, took a step forward, and spoke in his sharp, cutting voice. Your Majesty, I have something to say. He deliberately avoided looking at the two bloody pieces of evidence and instead fixed his gaze on Dijun. Long Chen is extremely treacherous. This is a deliberate provocation, a diversion. He wants to drag our immortal court into a quagmire with the remnants of the immortal court so that his dragon clan can profit. His voice rose, full of anguish and patriotic fervor. Your Majesty, though the Duke of the East is culpable, he was appointed by the Tao ancestor as leader of the male immortals. His forces are deeply rooted and complex. If, for the sake of a newly joined ally, we provoke the entire Eastern Loose Immortal faction into war, it will consume the foundation of our Yao race's great cause to unite the Great Desolation. Kunpeng cast his words broadly around the hall. If this war begins, victory or defeat, it will only create needless enemies for the Immortal Court. Worse, it would openly disrespect the Tao ancestor. If Xixiao Palace is angered, that would be a true hidden danger for our court. I humbly advise a policy of appeasement, long-term thinking. We must not be tricked by Long Chen's scheme. A long-term view? A voice cut through, the coldest, most domineering voice. It was not loud, but it carried the weight to suppress the universe, instantly crushing Kunpeng's argument. Emperor Tai stepped forward. With a single step, the laws of Lingxiao Palace bowed to him. Space itself quivered. Kunpeng, do you mean to make this emperor's brother a laughingstock before all of the Great Desolation? Tai did not even glance at Kunpeng. His gaze was fixed on Dijun, as if expecting an answer. The chaos bell suspended above the throne twitched at its master's anger and emitted a barely perceptible shiver. A ripple of Tao resonance spread. Kunpeng felt his Tao foundation hum as though it might collapse. All further words stuck in his throat and his face went mottled purple. Tai turned his gaze back to Kunpeng, emotionless save for naked contempt. A mere new ally? Kunpeng, the Dragon Clan is an ally proclaimed by my brother, in the name of the Heavenly Emperor, to heaven and earth. He swept his arm toward the boundless lands beyond the hall. His voice deepened into thunder and shook Lingxiao Palace to its bones. Those ants are not merely slaughtering some aquatic vassals. They are carving at the face of the immortal court with knives. They are not tearing the reputation of the Dragon Clan. They are trampling the imperial edict of the Heavenly Emperor. Tai's gaze hardened into twin blades of slaughter aimed at Kunpeng. If we tolerate this today, will tomorrow see anyone step on the immortal court's head with impunity? What is that Duke of the East but a useless man trapped on an island by Long Chen, waiting to die? Do the remnants under him, who cannot even see the signs of the times, deserve even a comparison with the majesty of the Heavenly Emperor? As he finished, Tai dropped to one knee before Dijun with a resounding thud. His movements were swift and decisive. His voice pealed like a great bell into the sky. Brother, your younger brother requests leave to personally lead the Yao soldiers and flatten Zifu continent. Not only to execute the Duke of the East, but to use his blood and the blood of all who follow him to inform the myriad races of the Great Desolation, who is the only legitimate ruler of heaven and earth, who is the true dominator of the universe. Those who provoke the immortal court shall die. Your Majesty, please issue the decree. I second that. Your Majesty, issue the decree to spread our heavenly might. Yao Godbaize followed and knelt. The 10 great Yao saints all fell to their knees, battle intent boiling, sweeping through the hall. Dijun's gaze moved from Tai, whose warlike intent reached the sky, past Kunpeng, who had gone pale and dared not speak further, across the varied faces of the Yao gods below. He knew this was a brazen plan, but an overt scheme was a test laid bare, inescapable and unavoidable. The prestige of the immortal court had never been won by patience, it was enforced by slaughter. He opened his mouth slowly. His voice was calm, yet absolute, carrying the weight of imperial decree. Kunpeng, your vision is confined to this small corner. You see only losses and not gains. The immortal court is newly established. Its foundation is not yet secure. It needs a thunderous battle, a bloody display of power. The Duke of the East and his foolish followers have offered their heads to my blade. I have no reason to refuse them. His gaze fixed on Taiyi. Each word fell like law, carved into the void. Granted, you will go personally. Go and tell the myriad races of the Great Desolation that allies of the immortal court are sacred and inviolable. Dijun rose. The great sun and star map embroidered on his imperial robe seemed to stir, radiating divine splendor. Issue my decree. Duke of the East has defied the heavenly order. His crimes are unforgivable. The principal offenders among his immortal court must be executed. But I cherish life. I will give the immortals on the island a chance. All who are willing to submit to the immortal court may join our Yao race and be rewarded according to their merits. Those who resist to the end. The true sunfire flared in Dijun's eyes, blinding in its intensity. No Yao god in the hall could meet it. Shall share the same fate as the Duke of the East, body and soul annihilated, true spirit extinguished. On Zifu Immortal Island, the Duke of the East was gaunt. The Gui Water Divine Lightning had nearly exhausted his pure Yang Dao foundation, but his eyes burned with feverish fervor. Through the water mirror technique, the tide of condemnation against the Dragon Clan across the Great Desolation swelled higher and higher. "Ha! Longchen, you brat! Do you think trapping me is a victory?" He howled hoarsely to a few similarly disheveled trusted great Luo immortals beside him. "The world's trend is with me. The Tao ancestors' decree is in heaven. What the people desire is heaven's will. Just wait. When the myriad immortals rage, when karma turns, when the Tao ancestor unleashes his thunderous saintly wrath, that will be the day your dragon clan perishes." As his laughter rang out, the sky suddenly darkened. It wasn't ordinary clouds blotting the sun. It was a more primal, more absolute obliteration of light. The firmament itself seemed to be gripped by an invisible hand that sucked away light, law, and even the concept of existence. The island's wind died, waves stilled, the protective spiritual lights around every immortal dimmed and snuffed out. Time and space were frozen under a supreme force. Above the nine heavens, an ancient bell imprinted with sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and plants slowly manifested. It made no sound. Its mere presence and the Tao resonance it emitted caused Zifu Continent's proud island-protecting formation to melt away like thin ice under a burning sun. The enormous net of Gui Water Divine Lightning that had tormented the Duke for days unraveled under that resonance, collapsing into primitive particles and vanishing. Freed from that torment, the Duke of the East violently broke his restraints. He looked up, his wild laughter frozen into a ridiculous, terrified expression. A colossal face, cold and indifferent, slowly took shape within the clouds. Golden eyes looked down upon the island like a god regarding dust. Emperor Taiyi, Duke of the East. Taiyi's voice did not travel through the air. It resonated directly in the true spirit of every living being on the island. "Do you know your crime?" Boom. The Duke's mind shattered. Why? Why had it not been Longchen? Why the immortal court? Why Emperor Taiyi? A chill more bone-deep than the Gui Water Lightning ran from his tailbone to crown. He was, after all, once a powerful governor of the immortal court. After the instant of terror came boundless fury and indignation. "Know my crime? What crime have I committed?" he roared. A flash of light sprang to his hand. The dragon head staff, a top-grade innate spirit treasure personally bestowed by Tao ancestor Hongjun, was already in his grasp. He stared up at the giant face and bellowed, "Emperor Taiyi, I was chosen by the Tao ancestor as leader of the male immortals to govern the loose immortals of the Great Desolation. That is a saintly decree. Your Yao immortal court has raised an army. Do you intend to defy a saint?" He clung to the last hope represented by the words Tao ancestor. Taiyi's golden eyes betrayed no ripple. "Saint," he said with utter contempt. "The saint governs the heavenly Tao. My brother governs heaven and earth. Your people slaughtered the heavenly emperor's allies and trampled the heavenly emperor's majesty. This is an affront to heaven, an unforgivable crime." Even a saint's decree cannot save you." The Duke trembled with rage. He poured every remaining ounce of power into the dragon head staff and shouted, "You Yao race have defied the greatest taboo and will suffer heavenly wrath. Today I will execute heaven's punishment." A brilliant immortal light erupted from the staff, and a lifelike ancestral dragon phantom roared into the sky, a thing capable of rending time and space. Tai watched unmoving. The chaos bell above the nine heavens shifted. Dong! The first chime sounded. The ancestral dragon phantom shattered inch by inch under the bell's tone and dissolved into countless specks of light. The dragon head staff gave a mournful shriek. Its radiance died, and hairline cracks webbed across its surface. Pfft! The Duke of the East was struck, blood of origin essence spouting from his mouth. Disbelief painted his features. Dong! The second chime. The three flowers above his head convulsed. The 5 qi in his chest collapsed with a roar. The pure Yang Dao fruit he had cultivated for hundreds of millions of years shattered under that bell sound like porcelain struck by a hammer. "No, impossible," he wailed, despair and fear raw in his voice. "I was appointed by the Dao ancestor. I am destiny." Dong, the third chime. Where the bell's sound passed, the Duke's unwilling, terrified expression and his physical body, primordial spirit, true spirit, and all traces he had ever left in the river of time were erased from the very origin of existence. He did not die so much as never have existed. The lingering bell tone faded between heaven and earth. Tai's majestic voice spread across the immortal island and out over the 4 poles of the great desolation. "The heavenly emperor has decreed, the principal offender has been executed. You all, surrender or die." Immortals on the island who had just escaped stared at the place where the Duke of the East had been. There was nothing, no body, no trace, as if that man had never been born. They looked up at the figure that represented absolute power and authority, and any lingering hesitation or hope vanished. "We surrender," one voice called. "We surrender. We are willing to die for the immortal court," others cried. Surrenders rose like mountains and tidal waves across the East Sea. On that day, the great desolation trembled. Deep within the sea of blood, Patriarch Styx withdrew his gaze and murmured, "What a Dijun, what a Tai! Even more terrifying is that little dragon in the East Sea." Outside the 33 heavens, in Xianxia Palace, all laws lay muted. The saint's Dao field was silent. Dao ancestor Hongjun sat upon his cloud platform, seemingly unaware of the convulsions in the great desolation and uttering not a word. Silence was the loudest answer. Even saints dared not cross the sharp edge of the wills that now shaped heaven and earth. Chapter 72. From today on, all the waters in the world belong to the Dragon Clan. Emperor Tai personally arrived at the East Sea. The Chaos Bell rang 3 times, and the Duke of the East was annihilated in body and spirit. The immortal court of the Zifu continent was reduced to ashes in a single day. The announcement did not sweep through like a storm. It landed like a silent decree from heaven, branded into the primordial spirit of every golden immortal and above across the great desolation. For a time, countless loose immortal Taoist abodes that had just sworn allegiance to the immortal court, believing they had found the path to ascension, were filled with spitting blood from premonition and the cries of shattered Tao hearts. The heavenly mandate they had pledged their loyalty to had, in a single day, become the greatest joke in the world. Kunlun Mountain, 3 Pure Ones Hall. Clear qi flowed through the hall, and Tao resonance rose naturally, but the atmosphere was heavy as iron. "Senior brother." Yuanshi Tianzun's face was cold, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "The Yao race's actions trample on Dao ancestor Hongjun's decree in front of all the myriad races of the Great Desolation. No matter how incompetent the Duke of the East was, he was personally appointed by Dao ancestor Hongjun and represented our Xuanmen's face. If this precedent stands, what will become of a saint's dignity?" Across from him, Taiching Laozi reclined on his futon without lifting an eyelid, gently caressing the Taiji diagram in his hand. His voice was calm and unruffled. "A decree is a decree, and the grand trend is the grand trend." "What does that mean?" Yuanshi Tianzun demanded. Taiking Laozi opened his eyes, black pits as still as an ancient well, as though reflecting the course of the heavenly Tao. Diyun established the heavenly court to emulate antiquity and rule over heaven and earth. That is the general trend. His voice was faint, emotionless. The Duke of the East blocked the Heavenly Court's path and obstructed the Heavenly Emperor's momentum. So, he deserved to die? Yuan Tianzin's tone went colder. So, he died. Tai King Laozi slowly closed his eyes and said no more. Beside them, Tongtian Jiaozhu, who had been silent until now, suddenly let out a soft laugh. He stretched a hand and the Qingping sword materialized in his palm, the blade humming with battle intent. What a sharp blade! What a Dragon Clan crown prince who delivered the blade! He looked at his two senior brothers with a flash of joy. Compared to obeying decrees and advancing step by step on a chessboard, I prefer someone daring to overturn the board. He didn't sneak around. He declared openly that the so-called heavenly mandate can be seized by those with strength. Humph! Yuanshi Tianzun flicked his sleeve in a cold snort, and the temperature in the hall dropped. 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. The box of shattered bones and the cauldron of blood-soaked earth had been burned by divine fire, but the lingering resentment and bloody qi still lent the palace a grim weight. Dijun sat high on the imperial throne, looking down at the Dragon Clan envoy, kneeling respectfully below. Dragon Clan envoy, you have rendered meritorious service this time, he said in a majestic, even voice. My heavenly court needs allies like the Dragon Clan, those who understand rules and can get things done. He issued his decree aloud. The Duke of the East acted against heaven. If the remnants of his immortal court are willing to surrender, they may be enrolled among the Yao race. All past transgressions will be forgiven. The 10 great Yao sages shall descend to the lower realms immediately to recruit loose immortals and bolster the prestige of my heavenly court. With the decree given, the Dragon Clan envoy bowed and withdrew. Dijun turned his gaze to Emperor Taiyi, whose murderous qi had not fully dissipated. Second brother, what do you think of that Dragon Clan crown prince? For the first time, a trace of solemnity touched Emperor Taiyi's stern face. He is a formidable individual, a fine blade but too sharp. If you cannot hold it, it will cut you. Dijun smiled, the great sun and stars diagram on his imperial robe radiating boundless divine light. That's fine. What I want is the sharpest blade. Across the heavens, attention drifted, intentionally or not, to the 33 heavens and that palace veiled in purple qi, impervious to all law. Xixiao Palace remained as always, ancient and unresponsive. Hongjun, the Dao ancestor, gave no answer. Silence was the clearest attitude. At that moment, the myriad races of the Great Desolation truly understood that the world's tides did not turn at a dinner party. Even saints must yield their fomeng, their prominence, to the grand trend. East Sea, Crystal Palace. The hall that had once been tense now buzzed with jubilant fervor bordering on frenzy. Your Highness, we won. We truly won. Ao Shi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, who had previously bowed and begged for battle, trembled with excitement until his whiskers quivered. The heavenly court acted, and the Duke of the East was annihilated. Those immortal court lackeys on the Great Desolation who harmed our subordinates. Overnight, some died, some surrendered. No one dares speak the 4 words Dragon Clan demonic scourge anymore. Aonan, Dragon Lord of the South Sea, added with adoring fervor, Your Highness's brilliant foresight. Without sending out a single soldier of our clan, you had the heavenly court clear our obstacles and simultaneously cement our prestige. Methods like this are unheard of. Longchen sat on the throne, expression even, tapping the armrest lightly. Uncle Ao Shi. His voice was not loud, yet it hushed the hall. In this round, we did not expend a single soldier. He pointed to the deep sea visible beyond the palace windows. The dragon soul of Ao Shen from Blackwater Marsh, the blood and mud of tens of thousands of carp spirits from Yunmeng Marsh, that was the cost our Dragon Clan paid. The ecstatic expressions of the Dragon Lords slowly faded into solemn gravity. A price must yield a return. Longchen rose, walked to the enormous map of the Great Desolation's water veins, and spoke slowly. Tell me, what gains did our Dragon Clan reap from this battle? The Dragon Lords exchanged startled looks. Aodong stepped forward and said in a deep voice, Your Highness, the first gain is prestige. The heavenly court stood up for us. Emperor Taiyi personally annihilated the Duke of the East. All the myriad races will now know that those who are friends of the Dragon Clan cannot be touched, and our enemies are beyond the heavenly emperor's protection. Well said. Long Chen nodded, then asked, "And the second gain?" Aoshi's dragon eyes brightened as understanding struck him. He blurted out in excitement, "Momentum! The Heavenly Court's prestige has surged. They will now frantically recruit loose immortals and greatly increase their strength. They will become a genuine counterweight to the Wu race on the continent. When two great powers contend, our dragon clan can seize the precious opportunity that gap creates." "Indeed," Long Chen agreed, his gaze sweeping over the gathered dragon lords. A meaningful curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Then what is the most crucial third gain?" The dragon lords fell silent, puzzled. No one could immediately name it. Long Chen's voice rolled through the hall, clear and penetrating as a dragon's roar. "Whose chess piece was the Duke of the East?" Aoshi trembled, a name choking out of him like a gale. Dao ancestor Hongjun." The chess piece had lost control and was blocking others' paths. Long Chen continued. "We provided the blade. The Heavenly Court acted and cleared the board for the owner of the chessboard. Afterwards, the owner of the chessboard remained silent. He enunciated each word with weight. What does that silence represent?" It hit them like lightning. A shiver of dread and awe ran from tailbone to crown. "It's tacit approval." Aobei's voice shook, disbelief plain in his eyes. "Dao ancestor Hongjun's tacit approval." Long Chen turned to face the high officials of the Dragon Clan, his voice thunderous and resonant. "We exchanged the Duke of the East's life for Dao ancestor Hongjun's tacit approval. As long as we do not actively provoke the Wu and Yao races and do not vie to be the world's protagonist." He pressed his hand firmly on the map of the Great Desolation's water veins, covering the 4 seas, every river, and every lake. "Then these water veins are ours." Realization swept through the hall. It was not a secret conspiracy. It was an open, brazen stratagem, borrowing the grand trend, borrowing the momentum of saints in the Heavenly Court. Long Chen's gaze pierced the Crystal Palace and the boundless waters beyond, his imperial bearing filling the room. "From today on," he proclaimed, "wherever the water veins reach, it shall be the territory of the Dragon Clan." It had been 10 years since the Duke of the East was officially declared non-existent. In the East Sea Crystal Palace, before the massive Great Desolation water vein map, a report was laid before Long Chen. "Reporting to Your Highness, Bai Zhe, the demon god of the Heavenly Court, executed Xianxia, a former golden immortal of the Immortal Court, the day before yesterday. He declared to the Great Desolation that this villain harbored resentment and led stubborn resistance, and that his blood would be used to honor the Heavenly Emperor's majesty." The Night Yaksha commander reported in a low voice. "According to our intelligence, Xianxia had already surrendered his immortal court seal, but because he hesitated in fleeing, an excuse was found and his primordial spirit was publicly refined." Long Chen's face remained calm. He crushed the jade slip in his hand, powder sifted through his fingers. Yet every Dragon Clan elder in the hall felt a cold weight settle on their hearts. The promise that past transgressions will not be pursued had turned out to be empty. The so-called recruitment was only a more brutal purge and assimilation. Di Jun, wielding the blade the Dragon Clan had given him, had not only destroyed the Duke of the East, but was now using the remnant's blood to forge the foundation of his nascent Heavenly Court. A more barbaric, more powerful, utterly intolerant era had arrived, one that would brook no defiance. When an era shifts, the greatest beings respond first. On that very day, the whole Great Desolation trembled violently, not from earthquakes, but from the tremor of Tao itself. Above the 33rd heaven, a scorching will that incinerated all things ascended like a second sun, arrogantly proclaiming its existence. Di Jun. From Kunlun's Jade Purity Palace, a sharp, world-cleaving jade purity immortal light rent the firmament, spreading primordial laws. In the sea of blood, 2 murderous sword shadows capable of annihilating all life stirred boundless karmic flame, Nether River. In the northern Nether Sea, the shadow of a colossal Kunpeng rose, vast enough to swallow the heaven's light, Kunpeng. One by one, over 10 new, terrifying wills, far beyond the limits of a grand unity golden immortal, imprinted themselves on heaven and earth. The laws of the Great Desolation howled, but beneath the wailing there was an irrepressible cheer. They welcomed a new class of dominators. The quasi-saint era had arrived. At the same time, the outside world erupted, deep in the dragon vein eye, within the forbidden land of the East Sea Dragon Palace, the immense sea-like upheaval became the final push that broke them through. Zulong and Dong, who sat cross-legged, opened their eyes together. "This is the moment," they said. "Sever!" Two dragon roars, originating from the primordial Great Desolation, thundered through the forbidden land. An ancient Zulong burned with the fire of time, its body coiled with the phantom of the river of time. A domineering battle dragon was sheathed in indestructible Zheng metal, each scale a peerless weapon. From the three blossoms of auspicious clouds above them, two vast Dao fruit incarnations stepped forth. Dragon might of such magnitude rose that it could have overturned the seas, and for a moment it nearly did, sweeping toward the East Sea Dragon Palace. A single hand pressed that tempest down before it could spread. Longchen turned, a faint smile on his composed face. "Congratulations to my two uncles on attaining the quasi-saint Dao fruit." Zulong and Dong retracted their pressure, shifted into human form, and bowed from their hearts. "Your Highness!" The bow was not for rank, but for rebirth. Zulong's voice trembled with excitement. "If not for your Highness using immense karma to recast our Dao foundations, the heart demon backlash at the moment of severing the corpses would have damned us both forever." Dong knelt on one knee, his tone ringing like clashing metal. "What your Highness points to is the true grand Dao of our dragon clan." Longchen reached out and helped him up. "Severing the three corpses is Hongjun's Dao, using external acquired spirit treasures to cut obsessions and force personal transcendence. It can be used, but it cannot be fully relied upon." His gaze fell on his reconstructed left arm. The azure dragon Dao seed that resided there pulsed profoundly, as if nurturing an entire azure dragon world. "The foundation of our dragon clan lies in our bloodline, power returning to the self." Zulong and Dong stared at that arm, a flash of awe and dread passing through their eyes. The power within was a Dao utterly different from the method of severing corpses, more fundamental, more domineering. Longchen had long since walked ahead of them. At that moment, a holy voice, neither joyful nor mournful, yet vast and boundless, ignored the palace's restrictions and echoed across time and space straight into the hearts of the three Dragon Clan dominators. 3,000 years from now, in Xianxia Palace, there will be a second sermon. Hongjun Dao Ancestor. Zulong and Dong's expressions tightened, the joy drained from their faces. The first sermon had distributed primordial purple qi and ushered in the quasi-saint era. What would the Dao Ancestor do with a second sermon at a point when the struggle between witches and demons had just begun and the Great Tribulation loomed? What chess piece would he move next? Zulong drew a deep breath, exchanged looks with Dong, and saw the same determination mirrored back. He stepped forward and spoke solemnly to Longchen. "Your Highness, Dong and I have a plan that might let us glimpse the Dragon Clan's fate before the Great Tribulation descends." "Oh," Longchen gestured for him to continue. "Our clan has an ancient inherited treasure, the heaven-gazing mirror," Zulong said, eyes burning with a hint of madness. "It can forcibly project a sliver of the future at the most chaotic nodes of the Heavenly Secrets operation. The Dao Ancestor's sermon is one of the most turbulent moments for the Heavenly Secrets. It's the best time to use it." Dong added with desperate resolve, "But this is nothing short of stealing heavenly secrets under a saint's nose. It's extremely perilous. One misstep and one dies, and their Dao dissipates. Now that we've advanced to quasi-saints and have karma shielding us, we're willing to risk everything for the Dragon Clan. One of us will be the primary sacrificer. The other will be the protector. Even if a saint detects us, we will fight to the death to secure your Highness's safety." They had discussed it long ago, intent on using their newly attained quasi-saint lives to seize a future for the Dragon Clan. Longchen watched them silently for a long while, then finally smiled. The smile sent a chill through Zulong and Dong, ancient dragons who had lived for millennia. "If you go, you are thieves," he said. They were stunned. "Your Highness." "I will go with you," Longchen interrupted. "No, Your Highness, absolutely not," they protested, alarmed. "You are the eternal foundation of our clan. How can you put yourself in danger?" Longchen waved them down and did not argue. Instead, he asked calmly, "Why did I use the Heavenly Court's hand to destroy the Duke of the East?" They were taken aback, and before they could answer, Longchen's gaze seemed to pierce the boundless waters of the Crystal Palace and rest on the palace beyond the 33 heavens, shrouded in primordial purple chi and impervious to all laws. It was to establish the Heavenly Court's prestige and to seize momentum for our dragon clan, he said. More importantly, on behalf of Hongjun, I cleared out a disobedient chess piece that was blocking others' paths as well. His voice was light, but struck like bolts of chaotic thunder in Zulong and Aodong's minds. That tacit approval is the greatest protective amulet for our dragon clan as we traverse the Great Desolation. As long as the witches' and demons' tribulation has not ended, and as long as our dragon clan, the chess piece, remains useful, the chess player will not casually smash the board. He turned back slowly, imperial majesty filling him as he finished, word by word. Therefore, if you two go to Xianxia Palace merely to spy and are caught, your lives will be forfeit. But I will go in person, he declared. He looked at the two stunned quasi-saints, his smile deepening. I will take our two newly risen quasi-saints and go with fanfare. This is not stealing. This is a showdown. Long Chen's dragon eyes were deep with the certainty and domineering aura of one who had seen the whole board. I want Hongjun and all the myriad races of the Great Desolation to see with their own eyes that our dragon clan is qualified to sit at the table. I also want to ask him directly what destiny he plans for our clan. He paused, and his command rang through the dragon palace. Pass down the order. 3,000 years from now, gather the luck of the four seas and follow me. To return to Xixiao. Chapter 74. Let's be frank, my dragon clan has two quasi-saints. Above the East Sea, Long Chen's imperial command, Revisit Xixiao, was more than a mere order. It became an invisible heavenly constitution, stamped across every inch of the four dragon palaces. 3,000 years flashed by for the Great Desolation, but for the dragon clan the world had been remade. Under Long Chen's will, Zulong and Aodong, two newly promoted quasi-saints, acted in person, using their supreme power to regulate the world's water veins. The Zulong, original dragon vein, shattered during the Dragon Han calamity, was forcibly reconnected and reignited by the immense luck that scattered after the Duke of the East's death, and by the vast karma the dragon clan had accumulated. The four dragon palaces ceased to rule independently. They became an unprecedentedly cohesive whole. The vastness of the East Sea, the sharp metal of the West Sea, the burning intensity of the South Sea, and the profound mystery of the North Sea. Under the Dragon Vein's mobilization, four origin powers converged above the East Sea Crystal Palace into a purple-gold canopy of luck that spanned heaven and earth. Beneath that canopy, myriad dragon phantoms roared and coiled, scales and claws ferocious, exuding an imposing majesty. It was the ancient dragon court returning from ages sealed by dust, the dragon clan's most prosperous era since the fall of the original dragon. On the day the 3,000-year period ended, a distant, prolonged Tao sound, stripped of emotion, issued from Xixiao Palace beyond the 33 heavens and rang through the entire Great Desolation. The second lecture is now due. Those with affinity may come and listen. Hongjun's voice echoed in the hearts of every being at or above the Grand Unity Golden Immortal rank. Atop Kunlun Mountain, 3 streams of pure chi shot into the sky, bearing creation's karma and piercing the chaos beyond the heavens. In the sea of blood, a blood-colored shadow stepped on a 12th-grade karmic fire-red lotus and rose through filth into the 9 heavens. One by one, the most famous top-tier figures of the Great Desolation, those who dared not delay, converged toward the same direction. Inside Pangu Hall on Mount Buzhou, the 12 Zuwu paid the summons no heed. Evil chi surged through the hall. They revered Pangu, their father god, and would bow to no one else. At that moment, above the East Sea, the 10,000 Dragons World Purification Formation, spanning hundreds of millions of miles, silently split open a colossal gateway. An imperial carriage emerged. Its hull was astonishingly formed from a section of the original dragon vein, refined to a brilliance by golden karma light. Tao patterns of the 4 seas mingling waters were engraved along it. With each turn, it inhaled and exhaled the water luck of the entire Great Desolation. At the prow crouched a ferocious, majestic dragon head, the original dragon, its eyes 2 purple-gold dragon pearls condensed from the East Sea's luck. The imperial carriage warped space-time. Laws surrendered at its presence. This was no ordinary vehicle, but an acquired karma supreme treasure of infinite power, rivaling innate treasures, the original dragon imperial carriage. Longchen, Zulong, and Aodong stood with hands behind their backs on the prow. Longchen still wore a deep black imperial robe, his aura as fathomless as the four seas. Zulong and Aodong made no attempt to hide. Two quasi-saint pressures, far beyond the restraints of a grand unity golden immortal, surged across the East Sea coast as the imperial carriage appeared. Countless loose immortals and powerful figures rushing toward the chaos were shaken. Their primordial spirits stung, and they looked back in horror. Dragon Clan? Two quasi-saint pressures. Heavens, besides Zulong, the Dragon Clan actually has a second quasi-saint. A sharp-eyed cultivator recognized the other and could hardly contain his voice. It's Aodong, the East Sea Dragon King Aodong. Rumored his Dao foundation was destroyed and he was near death. How did he become a quasi-saint? What a grand gesture, using the original dragon vein as a boat and the luck of the four seas as a carriage. What is the Dragon Clan trying to do? Before the murmurs faded, the original dragon imperial carriage turned into a streak of purple gold light and, ignoring space-time, plunged into the chaos beyond the heavens, leaving all grand unity golden immortals behind. In the Chaos Void realm, gale force winds were knife-sharp, and turbulent currents of space-time could shred golden immortals. Yet wherever the imperial carriage passed, all laws yielded. Violent chaotic chi parted like docile subjects, laying down a flat, stable purple-gold grand Dao. Zulong felt the power swell within him, and barely containing his excitement, said, "Your Highness, this journey is no different from directly questioning a saint. We, Longchen's gaze calmly fixed on the faint palace deep within the chaos. His voice was indifferent. If you two uncles go alone, you are thieves. If I go with you, you are envoys." He turned to the two newly minted quasi-saints with a knowing smile. Thieves steal heavenly secrets and should be killed. Envoys, however, represent the dignity and luck of my entire dragon clan. A chess player never smashes his own pieces before the game is decided. Zulong and Aodong's hearts trembled. The last traces of worry in their eyes were replaced by boundless pride and resolve. Ahead, demonic chi swelled, and a great sun hung in the sky. A magnificent imperial carriage, pulled by 9 grand unity golden immortal rank 3-legged golden crows, blocked their path. Dijun and Emperor Tai stood side by side aboard it, their gazes piercing the chaos and fixed on the approaching original dragon imperial carriage. When Dijun's imperial eyes found the two undisguised quasi-saint auras, the heavenly emperor's pupils narrowed. Emperor Tai nearly released a wisp of Dao charm that pressed down on the ages. The phantom of the Chaos Bell flickered and vanished. 3,000 years unseen, the Dragon Clan has indeed given us a surprise. Dijun's voice carried across the chaos, majestic and probing. The original Dragon Imperial carriage slowed and faced the Sun Imperial carriage. Longchen smiled faintly and inclined his head. "Your Majesty the Heavenly Emperor is too kind. My Dragon Clan merely inherited some ancestral legacy and was fortunate enough to break through." He paused, then his tone shifted, his gaze sharpening. However, wasn't this surprise precisely something His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor set in motion back then? The true sunfire in Dijun's eyes flared. What a Longchen, what a set in motion. By slaying the Duke of the East, Dijun became the Blade, earning his fearsome name. Yet the Dragon Clan had siphoned much of the Duke's luck after his death, and the boundless resources of Zifu continent, using them to produce a second quasi-saint. In this grand game, who was the blade, and who the hand that wielded it? Emperor Tai stepped forward, his pure, overbearing will press down on Longchen, battle intent boiling in his golden gaze. "Longchen, your Dragon Clan hides deep. Fellow Taoist Tai, your words are mistaken." Longchen replied, smiling, the luck of the four seas swirling around him and dissipating that pressure. His tone was playful. "We don't hide deep. We learned a lesson from past mistakes. If all our trump cards are revealed at the start, wouldn't the landscape of this chessboard lose much of its interest?" The brief exchange was like two great Daos colliding in the chaos, sending invisible ripples through the void. After a moment's tacit accord, both sides rode on together toward Xixiao Palace. Soon Xixiao appeared, ancient, grand, existing since the chaos's birth. Its gates were shut tight, and over 100 mighty figures of the Great Desolation had already gathered outside. The three pure ones, Nuwa, Fuxi, Genyuanzi, Styx, Kunpeng, almost every top figure was present. When the Sun Imperial Carriage and the original Dragon Imperial Carriage arrived together, radiating endless luck, the clamor outside the gates fell silent, all eyes fixed on them. The Yao race heavenly court, now the protagonist of heaven and earth, naturally possessed unparalleled might. But the Dragon Clan at their side, when everyone realized that besides the unfathomable Long Chen, Zulong, and Ao Dong, two quasi-saints, stood openly on the Imperial carriage, the crowd went utterly quiet. Two quasi-saints? In a corner, Taoist Jian and Junti exchanged a look. The perpetual pain on their faces seemed to harden into bitter stone. The West had been barren, and they had hoped for a chance at revival. But how could such a prosperous dragon clan suddenly arise? The ancient dragon that had slumbered for countless years truly awoke. Long Chen alighted from the imperial carriage. His gaze swept calmly over the assembled, taking in their shock, wariness, and resentment. That was the effect he wanted, silent until a single roar could astonish. This was his declaration. Chapter 65. In the battle for the futon, the Dragon Clan takes the lead. The ancient, tightly sealed gate of Xianxia Palace swung inward without fanfare when the divine thoughts of all the great powers converged. There was no thunderclap or blinding light, only a single breath, a supreme breath that traced back to the origin of the great Tao, cutting across space and time and towering above all laws. Wherever it passed, the turbulent chaos chi stilled, spatial distortions calmed, and laws reverted to their most primitive nothingness. For a fleeting instant, even the quasi-saints, those who stood at the pinnacle of the primordial world with hearts tempered into indestructibility, felt their primordial spirits and Tao fruits swept clean. Consciousness slipped into absolute blankness. That blankness lasted barely a heartbeat before it ignited into the raw instinct of life, an all-consuming hunger for the Tao, a covetous burning for the saint place. 3 streaks of clear chi split that silence like divine blades. With no time for reaction, they tore forward and struck the palace gate. Taiching Laozi, under the protection of the heaven and earth Xuanhuang Linglong Pagoda, walked in first. Streams of Xuanhuang Mother Chi cascaded around him, making laws impotent and karma unable to touch him. Unmoved by sorrow or joy, he took the first of the 6 futons at the front, its primordial purple chi faintly shimmering. Yuanxi Tianzun followed. The jade pure immortal light that orbited him carved an absolute vacuum before him, a passage that proclaimed his supremacy. Any approaching figure, by divine ability or treasure, was flung aside by an irresistible creative force, crashing into the chaos with trembling primordial spirits. He snorted coldly and took the second futon. Tongchen Jiaozhu was flamboyant as ever. Sword intent flared, though his immortal slaughtering sword remained sheathed. A death domain lurked in potential, enough to cow anyone who might test it. He laughed heartily and strode to the third futon. The 3 pure ones, linked by lineage and legitimacy, had occupied the first 3 seats, domineering, undeniable. Great powers behind them glanced on enviously but dared not protest. Like a dream weaving through the torrent of divine abilities and spells, Nuwa appeared next, mountain and river map in hand. She stepped with uncanny precision onto the 4th futon. 4 of the 6 seats were taken. The last 2 became a crucible that would shape the primordial world for eons. Roaring with imperial authority, Dijun struck next. His river diagram and Luo book unfurled into a vast starry canopy, swallowing contenders like Kunpeng, Minghe, Genyuanzi, and others in a dizzying swirl of stars and displaced time. Trapped by the illusion, they glimpsed the futon, but found space and time folded between them. Dijun strode across the starry imperial path and claimed the 5th seat, his majesty palpable enough to cow those who had just escaped his stellar trap. Only 1 futon remained. Reason fled from the great powers. Hope, madness, rage, and killing intent converged on that single patch of ground. That seat belongs to me. The Yao will rise, and I will stand among the saints. Jie Taoist shouted, his voice like an emperor's. Fellow Taoist, a fine sentiment. Junti chimed, brandishing the 7 treasures wonderful tree toward old ancestor Hongyun, the weakest but nearest. Yao Master Kunpeng's demonic eyes bled red. Years of devotion to the Yao race had been crushed by Dijun's imperial move. Now madness and fury boiled up. He pushed his speed law to the limit, becoming a blur beyond divine thought. Claws of Northming evil Qi tore the void, aiming straight for old ancestor Honghuang. As the melee threatened to shred that space, another presence had already appeared beside the last futon, without fanfare, without any warning. An ancient, steady figure, Zulong, the ancestral dragon who had survived the Dragonhan calamity. His cloudy old eyes held no frenzy, only the calm of one who had seen through everything. He did not join the struggle. He simply stood in the right place at the right time. With a slightly withered, time-marked claw, he reached toward the futon as if nothing could stop him. Enraged, Kunpeng redirected all his fury, at Honghuang, at Dijun, at fate, onto this suddenly materialized dragon. Condensing his Northming evil Qi into black, profound ice, he let out a shriek that tore at the dimensions, a strike meant to crush Zulong's heavenly spirit. Beside Zulong, Ao Dong had long readied his killing intent, thousands of metal dragon shadows forming. A gentle hand touched Ao Dong's shoulder. Long Chen's voice penetrated the hearts of the two Dragon Clan quasi-saints, calm and unwavering. "No need," he said. "We are not here to contend, but to declare. To declare that our Dragon Clan is qualified to sit here. This qualification was not stolen or grabbed, it was honorably reclaimed." His words hung in the chaotic air. Long Chen didn't rise, didn't form seals, didn't radiate any overt magical fluctuation. He parted his lips and spoke a single word as if it descended from the source of all waters. "Fix." The utterance carried authority. The law followed. Kunpeng, mid-pounce, froze, his face twisted with bewilderment and shock. He felt no external restraining force on his demonic power. His primordial spirit still thrashed. His speed law had not faltered, but he could not move. From the most fundamental level, the rules had been altered. Water itself, the moisture in the chaotic air, the blood surging through his demonic body, the faint trace of innate true water in his primordial spirit, turned against him. Everything tied to the concept of water became a cage, obeying an older, deeper will. The will of the Lord of the Four Seas, the command of the source of all waters. Kunpeng no longer felt like the fearsome Yao master who devoured heaven and earth. He felt like a droplet trying to evaporate under a merciless sun, fighting against an ancient, boundless ocean. The suppression reached down to the very root of life and shook his Tao heart. A deathly silence descended. All great powers in the melee halted as if frozen by a spell, their expressions hollow as they looked to the black-robed figure standing before the ancestral dragon's imperial carriage, impassive and composed. This was no mere check of cultivation. It was a judgment of authority. On the futons, Taiking Laozi barely raised his eyelids. Yuanxi Tianzun tightened his grip on the three treasures Ruyi. Dijun, seated on his imperial futon, watched Long Chen with a fire flickering deep in his gaze, solemn, uneasy. Zulong's ancient claw, immaculate and unhurried, closed on the final purple futon. He settled himself slowly, and the futon let out a profound Tao rhythm that intertwined with the dragon's timeless aura, as if it had waited billions of years for this moment. The Dragon Clan had taken the sixth seat in Xianxia Palace. Only then did the watery authority that had bound heaven and earth ebb away like a receding tide. Kunpeng coughed up a mouthful of essence blood. His body was free again, but he reeled backwards several steps. His face was a mask of venom and humiliation, and beneath that, a deeper, colder fear aimed at Long Chen. "Long Chen!" Dijun's voice rolled out, thick with authority and confusion. "What is the meaning of this?" Long Chen smiled and inclined his head slightly toward the imperial seat. He did not look at the sputtering Kunpeng. "Heavenly Emperor, you flatter me," he said mildly. "The futon is for those who are destined." Fellow Taoist Kunpeng's impatience and excessive killing intent revealed his lack of destiny with this seat. "My clan uncle simply waited for the opportune moment amid the chaos and took his place calmly. That is destiny, nothing more." With that, Long Chen and Ao Dong moved to a quiet corner at the back of the main hall and sat cross-legged as if they had simply finished a minor errand. No one dared approach them. They could only exchange glances. The primordial world's heavens were about to be reordered. A heavy silence settled in the main hall, so complete that even breathing felt intrusive. Then, out of that hush, an extremely discordant sobbing sound broke the air. A strangled sob cut through the grandeur of the hall. All eyes swung to the sound and found two Taoists, Jian and Junti, slumped in a corner at the back. Jian's face was soaked with sorrow as if he bore all the world's suffering. He dabbed at his tears with a tattered sleeve, but the more he wiped, the more flowed. Junti was even more theatrical. He had collapsed to the ground, pounding the floor and keening aloud. "Teacher, your disciple is in agony. Our western lands are barren. The people suffer. We crossed mountains and rivers, passed through endless chaos chi, and finally reached Zixiao Palace, only to have no place to sit. These prayer mats are not destined for us. The saints' seats are not for us. Is it our fate that the West shall never prosper?" His wailing was absurdly heartfelt. The tragic tone and the logical complaint made every mighty being in the great desolation look over. Even those loftily seated on prayer mats frowned. They had seen shamelessness before, but never like this. If you can't get a seat, you just throw yourself on the floor and bawl. What kind of tactic was that? Yet because they presented themselves as humble, distant guests, rebuking them felt undignified. Junti's crying grew louder when he covertly glanced at old ancestor Honghuang nearby, as if the glimpse fueled his sorrow threefold. "And we, like our fellow Taoists from the East, are guests of Zixiao Palace, yet treated so differently. If we'd known, we wouldn't have come." His implication was plain. Then a cold snort, short, overflowing with contempt and impatience, cut across the hall. "Humph." The sound wasn't loud, but it stopped the wailing like a blade. The air chilled. Every heart tightened and turned toward the source. On the second prayer mat, Yuanshi Tianzun opened his eyes. When he looked around, there was no divine radiance, only an absolute, ancestral condescension rooted in his bloodline. His gaze swept Taiking Laozi and Tongtian and acknowledged shared origins. It nodded at Nua as an equal. But when it fell on Dijun in the 5th seat and Zulong in the 6th, his brows drew hard together. Disgust and disdain, almost unmasked, showed on his face. He could not tolerate what he called filth in Zixiao Palace and spoke, his voice cold. "A saint's Tao field, pure and sacred," Yuanshi said, each word drifting to every corner of the hall. "Now it is a muddle, good and bad mixed. Some furry, horned, wet-born, egg-hatched creatures occupy high seats and sit here with the Pangu Orthodox lineage. This defiles this place, and worse, slanders the Tao ancestors' prestige." Silence fell so absolute it could freeze a primordial spirit. If Jayan and Junti had been merely annoying, Yuanshi's words were the lightning strike that ignited 1,000 resentments. Furry and horned, wet-born and egg-hatched. Those 8 words, dripping with inherent arrogance, felt like invisible slaps across the faces of nearly everyone present. Everyone except the 3 pure ones, Nua and a select few. They stung the Yao race and the Dragon clan above all. Dijun's imperial dignity on the 5th mat froze, riven by a gloom that could dim light. In his imperial gaze, twin sun true fires roared, burning the void realm itself as surrounding chaos groaned. He was the heavenly emperor of the Yao race, their sovereign, and Yuanshi's words were equivalent to calling him a mere beast. Beside him, Zulong trembled in his ancient dragon form. Those dragon eyes that had witnessed countless eons were suddenly bloodshot. He had endured much, even defeat in the Dragon Han calamity, but he had never been humiliated like this, publicly called out in a saint's Tao field. Aodong's indestructible Gengjing Qi surged uncontrollably, splitting into billions of tiny golden sword spirits that sizzled as they cut the chaos. Long Chen opened his eyes. The deep night in his gaze, his authority over the 4 seas, now shimmered with cold. He had expected Yuanshi's arrogance. He had not expected this level of recklessness. This was not mere haughtiness. It was the Pangu orthodoxy declaring war on the myriad races of the Great Desolation. Before Long Chen could act, another voice erupted, hotter, more overbearing, one that could immolate the heavens. "Yuanshi, what did you just say?" Emperor Tai stepped out from behind Dijun, his form transforming into a blazing great sun that bathed the hall in heat and light. Above him, the phantom of the Chaos Bell coalesced. Its low hum sent visible ripples through space. "What did you say? Say it again if you dare." Tai's imperial will surged, suppressing the ages, bending time and space toward Yuanshi Tianzun. Yuanshi's expression hardened. The heaven's celebration cloud above his head exploded in radiance. 10,000 golden lamps flared, ornamental chains and auspicious chi shimmering as he braced against Tai's imperial pressure. A sneer curled his lips. What? Tai? Did this venerable one speak wrongly? Your Yao race, are you not merely a collection of birds and beasts, mountain spirits and wild monsters? If not furry and horned, then what are you? Killing intent boiled in Tai's golden pupils. Seek. Death. The final words were spat out between clenched teeth. He was fiercely protective of his elder brother Dijun. Yuanqi's insult trampled that dignity. The chaos bell rang. A gray wave of sound, annihilating laws, tore through the hall and slammed into Yuanqi's heaven's celebration cloud. The collision of two top-tier innate spirit treasures made Xianxia Palace tremble. Yuanqi staggered on his mat, his face paling. Tai too was pushed back half a step by the Pangu lineage's world-opening Dao Yun. The strike was evenly matched. Enough! Tai King Laozi finally intervened. The Taiji diagram in his hand unfurled into a golden bridge spanning heaven and earth, instantly bridging the two and calming the turbulent laws. This is a saint's Dao field. Insolence is not tolerated. Just as calm began to return, another voice rang out, casual but ill-fit to the place. Fellow Taoist Yuanqi's words are quite unreasonable. All heads turned. Long Chen had stood and now walked forward with unhurried steps. A composed smile still played on his face, as if he ignored the quasi-saint confrontation that had just shaken chaos. He stopped at Zulong's side and laid a steadying hand on the old dragon's trembling shoulder. A vast law of water flowed through him, instantly pacifying Zulong's near-berserk primordial spirit. Long Chen then lifted his gaze and met Yuanqi Tianzun's ashen face across the golden bridge. His smile remained, but his eyes had a new edge. "My dragon clan," he said calmly, born with innate water spirit bodies, rulers of the four seas, acting for heaven, were even appointed by the heavenly Tao as righteous deities of the great desolation in ancient days. How in your mouth did we become wet-born and egg-hatched filthy things? Every word struck like a hammer. He paused, then fixed Yuanqi with a sharper look, and the smile turned almost predatory. Or rather, does fellow Taoist Yuanqi think the heavenly Tao is unjust? That the Tao ancestor is blind to allow filthy creatures like us into this pure and sacred Xianxia Palace? Gasps rose and fell through the hall. Tai's attack had been brute force. Long Chen's words were surgical. If Yuanqi prided himself on being Pangu orthodox and on revering the Tao ancestor above all, then this was a direct insult to the Tao ancestor's judgment. To call the Dragon Clan unworthy was to accuse the heavenly Tao itself of error. Who dares put that accusation on another's head? Whoever wore that accusation would face death. You. Yuanqi's face flushed a sickly color. You mudskipper, glib-tongued. You reason illogically. Long Chen leaned in, eyebrow raised. So, fellow Taoist admits the heavenly Tao is unjust and the Tao ancestor blind? I do not, Yuanqi almost roared, losing composure. Then you admit my dragon clan is not wet-born and egg-hatched, but righteous deities of the heavenly Tao, fit to sit here and listen to the saint's great Tao, correct? Long Chen finished the trap with a smile. Yuanqi was trapped, punching at cotton disguised as righteousness, unable to land a blow, furious to the point of Tao heart rupture. Tongqian Zhaozhu frowned. Taiching Laozi closed his eyes in resignation. Then a vast, ethereal will descended, supreme, transcending time, space, karma, and fate. Under it, turbulent laws stilled and chaotic thoughts cleared. All tense atmospheres receded into the void. Silence fell like a held breath. Every mighty being, including the 6 quasi-saints, felt a chill and rose together, bowing to the empty high platform at the head of the hall. Greetings, Tao Ancestor. Tao Ancestor Hongjun had arrived. Hongjun's figure materialized without a sound on the cloud platform at the summit. He was unmistakably there, and yet he seemed to merge with chaos itself, outside any point in time. His presence did not press down on the crowd so much as rewrite the rule of existence. The tense atmosphere, the boiling killing intent, the surging primordial spirits, all of it was forcibly erased the moment he appeared. Nothingness. Absolute nothingness. Emperor Tai withdrew the illusion of the chaos bell, his domineering face gone cold and hard. He stepped back behind Dijun. Long Chen gave a meaningful smile to Yuanqi Tianzun, whose face had gone ashen, and then turned with composed grace to his corner and sat, as if the man who had just spoken like a blade against the Pangu Orthodox lineage had been someone else entirely. Yuanshi Tianzun's lungs heaved with barely suppressed fury. He stared at Long Chen and the retreating Emperor Taiyi, but in the presence of the Tao ancestor, he could only force down the malign qi clawing at his Tao heart and sit back, chest still trembling with agitation. Hongjun's gaze swept over them all and at the same time seemed to see nothing. He made no mention of the clash that had nearly overturned Xixiao Palace. His silence was itself a declaration. By refusing to favor Yuanxi, the Tao ancestor tacitly acknowledged the standing of the Yao race and the Dragon clan. The protagonists of heaven and earth possessed their majesty and could not be lightly insulted. The second sermon begins. Hongjun spoke without preamble, and his voice resonated directly within the primordial spirits of every being present. In an instant, endless Tao laws poured from him, forming visible rivers of golden runes that floated through Xixiao Palace, reshaping creation and negation alike. This time he did not preach the path of a quasi-saint who severs the three corpses. He preached the Tao of a saint. Below a saint, all are ants. Those 8 words, absolute constitutional as the heavenly Tao, struck into the true spirits of every listener like 1,000 primordial mountains. The mighty gathered there had all aspired to contend with heaven. Now they were bluntly told that without ascending to sainthood, they would remain insects forever. The disparity shattered many Tao hearts. Some even showed cracks. Long Chen reacted differently. He closed his eyes and sank his divine thought into an inner world built from the authority of the 4 seas. Hongjun's Tao of a saint was about becoming an instrument of the heavenly Tao, entrusting oneself to it, wielding laws as its shepherd and extension. Long Chen's path was the Tao of an emperor, to use supreme luck as fuel, the myriad races as kindling, to command the waters, smelt laws, and force all rules into becoming the instrument of his own imperial authority. One path borrows, the other seeks to seize. Hongjun's sermon was grand, selfless, and impartial, full of the heavenly Tao's shackles and balances. Long Chen listened like a cunning thief, stripping nutrients from the Tao ancestor's unreserved teaching to fortify his own heaven-defying imperial foundation. 3,000 years passed in a blink. When the sermon faded and everyone stirred from their profound reverie, the 6 figures on the futons had auras surging, Tao rhymes soaring, clearly enriched. Long Chen, however, sat with a strangely restrained aura, as deep and tranquil as the sea, appearing to have no cultivation at all. Only he knew that in those 3,000 years, his gains were no less than any of theirs. Hongjun looked down at the assembly, his voice as cold and distant as eternal ice. The sermon is complete. Do any of you have questions? Taiking Laozi was the first to rise. He bowed deeply to Hongjun, calling him teacher with great humility. May I ask, teacher, what is a saint? Yuanxi and Tongqian reacted at once, rising and bowing as well. Please enlighten us, teacher. Hongjun's eyes seemed to hold the creation and destruction of 1 billion stars as he said slowly, a saint is one who acts on behalf of the heavenly Tao and instructs all living beings. Now, I will accept 6 disciples and teach the method of becoming a saint, the primordial purple qi. Boom! The breath of every being in Xixiao Palace stopped. Hearts seemed to freeze. Accept disciples. Impart the method of becoming a saint, primordial purple qi. The office of saint was truly about to descend. Billions of years of striving stood before them. Who would be the 6 chosen? Hongjun's gaze fell first on the 3 pure ones in the front. Taiqing, Yuqing, Shangqing, you 3 are formed from Pangu's primordial spirit and bear the karma of opening heaven. You shall be my foremost disciples of the Xuanmen. The 3 pure ones prostrated themselves in ecstasy, their Tao bodies trembling. Disciples greet teacher. Nuwa, Hongjun continued, you shall bear great karma in the Grand Mist's future and may also enter my sect. Nuwa bowed with beaming joy. Disciple Nuwa greets teacher. 4. That left only 2 seats. Gazes immediately snapped to Dijun in the 5th seat and Zulong in the 6th. Dijun sat upon his imperial throne, the river diagram and Luo book above his head blazing with starlight. Imperial majesty flowed like a tide. He was the destined heavenly emperor, and he felt the seat his by right. Zulong remained calm, the law of time swirling about him, the legacy and luck of an age. Dijun's fists clenched beneath his wide imperial robes. Zulong's ancient dragon eyes, seasoned by countless eras, glinted with a rare anticipation. but Hongjun's gaze swept past them like a breeze. He gave them no pause. At last it settled on the two Taoists slumped at the hall's entrance, faces mournful. Jian, Junti. The four words carried no warmth, but they struck like invisible Tao swords through Dijun and Zulong's chests. The river diagram and Luo book above Dijun's head stuttered into disorder. His imperial purple chi quivered and nearly collapsed. He, the heavenly emperor, master of the Yao, the protagonist of heaven and earth, had been bypassed. Zulong's body shook. The ancient aura of time that clung to him seemed severed, a dimming spread through his being. The fragile spark of hope that had been kindling was doused in an icy, bone-deep wash. The Dragon Clan's last hope had been cut off. Though you two are not Eastern beings, Hongjun added, you have profound karma with the West and shall establish a great sect in the future. You may be my named disciples. Joy overwhelmed Jiin and Junti. They wept and kowtowed repeatedly to Hongjun, their cries echoing through the hall as if begging him not to change his mind. Disciples greet teacher. Their resounding kowtows made Dijun and Zulong's stunned silence all the more humiliating, an ironic tableau in the grand mist. Dijun felt the eyes of the crowd like knives, schadenfreude, pity, mockery, fear. Color drained from his imperial face. In the corner, Longchen's pupils tightened to pinpricks. He saw it, his uncle Zulong's once imposing back bowing, bit by bit. This old dragon had clawed out of the blood sea of the Dragonhan calamity and single-handedly propped up the last sliver of sky for the Dragon Clan. To be refused by a saint in person was the heaviest blow of karma. Longchen would not let him fall. The Dragon Clan could die in battle, but they would not kneel to be slaughtered. With a thought from his divine thought, a pure, unblemished imperial will from the origin of the four seas crossed space and flowed into Zulong's nearly dead sea of primordial spirit. Uncle, Longchen's voice, calm and imperious, echoed in Zulong's heart. A saint's disciple is a dog of the heavenly Tao. We, the Dragon Clan, are born emperors. Why should we be conferred by others? His Tao is not my Tao. What he gives, we do not want. What he does not give, we will take it ourselves. Those words exploded through Zulong's hush like chaos thunder. His body trembled, his dim dragon eyes flared with twin defiant golden flames. Of course, what was a saint? In the early Dragon Han, his dragon ancestor had been the only emperor in heaven and earth, ruling all races and punishing in heaven's stead. Why should the Dragon Clan bow to someone else's approval? Zulong slowly lifted his head. Inch by inch, his hunched back straightened like a spear, and the law of time about him thickened into an even more resolute will, an obstinate refusal to submit to the heavenly mandate. Even Hongjun on the high platform cast a brief, surprised glance. Dijun, however, tasted humiliation as rage and fury finally consumed him. He leapt to his feet, daring to question the Tao ancestor publicly. "Teacher," he called, "I am the heavenly emperor. I command the myriad stars of the cosmos and uphold the order of heaven and earth. Why is there no saint position for me?" Everyone's scalp crawled. How could Dijun be so brazen as to oppose the Tao ancestor? Hongjun's gaze finally rested on him. His voice was flat, indifferent to the extremes of the hall. Below a saint, even the heavenly emperor is an ant. The understated sentence struck harder than any divine attack. Dijun staggered on his futon, a mouthful of rebellious blood rising to his lips, forced down with agonizing effort. Boundless humiliation reddened his eyes until they shone with blood. Chapter 78, Honghuang Purple Qi, the Foundation of Sainthood. Dijun fell silent and sat down. Before the verdict of heaven's will, words were nothing but frail groans of humiliation. His imperial eyes, lit with true solar flames, fixed coldly on the motionless figure on the cloud platform. There was no anticipation, no reverence left, only a razor-sharp scrutiny, the look of a hunter sizing up its prey, of an enemy ready to be destroyed. Even the chaos chi in the main hall stilled. Every great power felt the Yao race's heavenly emperor's monstrous hatred and profound shame, as if it could burn the 9 heavens and 10 earths and return the grand mist to chaos. Hongjun seemed utterly unmoved. The saint's indifference itself was the deepest contempt. He spoke again, his voice emotionless, continuing his exposition. There are 3 ways to attain sainthood. First, to prove the Tao with power, like Pangu, who transformed into all things and opened heaven and earth. This method is the strongest, but since Pangu no one has succeeded. A murmur swept the hall. That path was mythic and unattainable. Second, to prove the Tao by severing the three corpses, cutting away good, evil, and self. When the three corpses merge as one may become a grand unity, golden immortal. This is the secondary method. Most of the quasi-saints present were following this route. They leaned forward to listen. Third, to prove the Tao with karma, found a great sect, enlighten all beings, accumulate boundless merit before heaven and earth. With the heavenly Tao's reward, one may also become a saint. This is the easiest path, but the most constrained by the heavenly Tao and yields the weakest power. They listened, finally understanding the scale of the saint realm. Hongjun's tone shifted. Yet regardless of the method, one thing is necessary as the foundation to reach the heavenly Tao saint position. He spread his hand. Above his palm, 6 strands of mysterious purple qi condensed out of nothing, spiraling erratically. It felt like the very crystallization of the great Tao's origin, the universe's ultimate truth. Even a glance sent quasi-saints' primordial spirits pounding and filled them with an instinctive urge to kowtow. This is the primordial purple qi, the foundation of the heavenly Tao. Those 6 words struck like thunder through everyone's hearts. Eyes across the hall flashed red with desire. This was the key to sainthood, the proof of true immortality, a safeguard against all calamity. Without it, no matter how lofty your magic or how great your divine abilities, you remained an ant to be crushed. Hongjun's gaze swept his 6 chosen disciples. Tai King, he flicked a finger. One strand transformed into a bolt of purple lightning and sank into Tai King Laozi's glabella. Tai King's Tao body convulsed, the Tao rhyme of non-action around him swelling, plunging him into sudden enlightenment. Yuking. The second strand shot into Yuanxi Tianzun. Shangking. The third entered Sect Master Tongtian. Pangu's orthodox line, the Tao ancestors' first disciples, 1 for each, no one objected. Nuwa. The 4th strand merged into Nuwa. Her slight body trembled as the creativity qi she carried and the primordial purple qi resonated. Her aura deepened into something unfathomable. Envy and helplessness rippled through the onlookers. The Tao ancestors' direct disciples were fated by heaven. No one dared complain. All eyes fixed on the 2 remaining strands in Hongjun's palm and on the 2 kneeling Western Taoists below, faces taut with expectation. Jiyin and Junti's hearts hammered. Hongjun regarded them with the same detached voice. Jiyin, Junti. He flicked his finger. A single strand flew out, but trembled midair and with a crack split into 2 halves. 2 incomplete strands aimed toward Jiyin and Junti. Junti's rapture froze. The half-strand heading to him, just before touching his glabella, seemed repelled by some invisible rule. It veered and forced itself into the other half-strand inside Jiyin. In the end, Jiyin received a whole primordial purple qi. Junti was left empty-handed. Silence fell. Everyone stared. Jiyin felt the qi grafted into his being, carrying a faintly discordant Tao rhyme. His face soured into stunned despair. Junti, who had been ecstatic a moment before, watched in mute horror as his joy vanished. He fell to the ground and howled. "Teacher, why? Why does senior brother have it and I don't? Master, you can't be so biased." The cry jolted the hall. Yes, why had the strand been split like that? It should have been shared. Hongjun's face remained frozen, his voice like ancient ice. You 2 jointly oversee the Western teachings. Your luck is linked and your fates are one. This strand of primordial purple qi must be shared and comprehended by both of you. Only when you become truly of one heart and mind will this luck be complete. On the surface, the words sounded grand and righteous, but the listeners, all sharp and calculating, heard a clear slight toward the west, a deliberate restriction. Jiyin sighed, pulled the still-crying Junti to his feet, and whispered through transmission, "Junior brother, don't make a scene. This is heaven's will. You and I were always one. To receive even this strand is a great fortune. Do not anger Master further." Junti's heart swelled with hatred, but he realized resistance would be fruitless. He stifled his sobs and swept a bitter gaze across the mocking Eastern great powers, filing this debt away for vengeance. With 5 strands distributed, Hongjun still held the last one. Breaths caught, hope flared. Dijun, Zulong, Kunpeng, Styx, those who had not yet been granted sainthood stared, eyes burning. But Hongjun's next move startled everyone. He tucked one strand away and kept only the final strand in his palm. This last strand of primordial purple chi escaped the ordinary wheels of heaven. It has no fixed owner and is not bound by karma. Its recipient will be decided solely by fate. At once he opened his palm. The purple stream, like an agitated dragon, darted wildly through the main hall of Xiao Palace. Chaos erupted. "It's mine! It's fated to my Yao race. Leave it for me." Every great power dropped pretenses and plunged into raw madness. Kunpeng unfurled enormous wings and became a hurricane that tore at the sky, lunging for the chi. Sectmaster Styx laughed, his 12th grade Karma Red Lotus spinning, the Blood River array. Millions of blood god children flooded the air, trying to claim a domain around the strand. Dijun's eyes burned with killing intent as the river diagram and Luo book spread like a starlit chessboard across the firmament to seal it. Emperor Tai shook the Chaos bell, striving to stabilize the space and seize the prize. Laws fractured, divine abilities collided, far bloodier and more desperate than the earlier scramble for prayer mats. In the crowd, Long Chen watched coldly and did not move. His Tao was the Tao of an emperor, the inner path of self-cultivation. The primordial purple chi was an external boon, an attachment resisted by his foundation. Forcibly merging it would undermine his own great wall. His attention cut through the chaos and settled elsewhere. Now unnoticed was the best moment. A divine thought from him spread like ripples into Zulong and Aodong's minds. "Uncle Aodong, now, act." Zulong and Aodong met each other's eyes. Resolve flared in the cloudy dragon irises. Zulong flipped his palm and produced an ancient, cracked stone mirror, the heaven-gazing mirror, one of the dragon clan's last secret treasures, and a relic from ancestral dragons' primordial battles. Aodong stepped forward and poured his vast, oceanic quasi-saint power into Zulong, as if they were a single current. At the same time, Aodong's quasi-saint incarnation, forged of Zheng metal, appeared, brandishing a dragon-gallant bright silver spear and warding their flank. Zulong bit his tongue and spat a mouthful of purplish gold dragon blood, hot as lava and containing his origin Tao law, onto the mirror's surface. The old stone hummed with an ancient tone. Its cracks gleamed and shifted as if alive. At the mirror's center, an illusory scene flowed into being, an endless, ever-changing river spanning past, present, and future, the heavenly Tao Long River. They would use the distraction of the primordial purple chi in Hongjun's diverted gaze to peer into the Dragon Clan's future, to steal a glimpse of destiny. The image cleared. A tragic vision unfurled. 10,000 dragons wailing, the blue sea stained with blood. A dreadful scene. Then an impossible will slammed down with a roar. From the cloud platform, Hongjun's indifferent eyes turned, and in that single glance they landed on Long Chen's corner. Crack! The heaven-gazing mirror in Zulong's hands shuddered and burst with a mournful wail. The surface spiderwebbed with fractures and nearly shattered. Zulong was struck as if by a heaven-splitting axe. Heart blood sprayed from his mouth and his aura withered. "We've been discovered." Aodong's face drained. He tried to seize Zulong and tear open space to flee, but it was already too late. Wherever the saint's gaze fell, space congealed, laws froze, the great Tao fell silent. Their bodies and primordial spirits were pinned immovably by an irresistible force. Not a finger could move, not even a thought could form. Their hearts plunged into the abyss. To pry into a saint's Tao field was a path to death. An indifferent will descended. It wasn't pressure so much as a rule-level erasure, formless, insubstantial, and everywhere. Candle Dragon and Aodong's primordial spirits were not being assaulted so much as negated at their roots. Thought itself flickered out, the flow of magic halted. They watched helplessly as their existence was rejected and forgotten by the whole Chaos, the whole Xianxia Palace, and the entire heavenly Tao. The glimpse of the future that had just swirled on the heaven-gazing mirror, the blood-stained azure sea, crumbled to dust in an instant. The mirror itself did not shatter so much as disintegrate like a sand painting, dissolving inch by inch from the edges back into primeval chaos. The law of destruction had locked onto the karma of the one who had peeped into the heavenly mystery. Next would be them. At the moment, utter despair threatened to swallow them. A faint cold snort echoed inside the two heartseas that were about to fall into eternal silence. Long Chen moved decisively. He did not try to fight the saint's will head-on. That would be like a mortal punching the sky. The 10,000 water dragon pearl between his brows did not erupt with divine light. Instead, its brilliance collapsed inward into an invisible singularity. He leveraged a supreme rule unique to the authority of the four seas in a way no one expected. He wasn't opposing the heavenly Tao, he was using the heavenly Tao's rules to create a fleeting bug. The saint's will had targeted the one who peeped. Long Chen's divine thought became the sharpest scalpel. In a thousandth of a second, along that fatal karma line, he grafted the act of peeping into the heavenly mystery from Candle Dragon and Ao Dong onto the heaven-gazing mirror that was dissolving. Let the artifact itself bear the primary responsibility for this heaven-defying act. A terrifying backlash ripped through him along that plucked string of karma. His body shook violently, his face drained of color. A dazzling purple-gold divine blood spattered from the corner of his mouth. Crack. A faint, crisp fracture rang deep within his Tao foundation. In the inner world he had constructed under the authority of the four seas, the vast ocean that symbolized the origin of the North Sea surged into towering waves, and a hideous fissure ran through the whole sea. The price was immense, but he had bought a sliver of survival for the two quasi-saints of the Dragon Clan. Above the cloud platform, those eyes that had looked down on all ages and treated all beings like pawns shifted for the first time. The Tao ancestor's gaze paused on Long Chen for a 10,000th of a second. It carried no pressure, no killing intent, and yet it was more terrifying than any divine ability. It was the marking of a variable. Long Chen gritted his teeth and met that gaze head-on, pain tearing through him as his primordial spirit rent. He had been targeted. The attention of the Tao ancestor, like an ancient divine mountain that could crush them at any moment, hung over the Dragon Clan. Something had to be done immediately. That gaze, which could decide the Dragon Clan's fate, had to be completely diverted. His eyes swept the hall. The powerful were frantically fighting for the primordial purple chi. Laws danced and divine abilities clashed, and the Xianxia Palace was in chaos. A wild, audacious idea formed in Long Chen's mind. A cold curve touched his lips. His divine thought moved again. The 10,000 water dragon pearl's power, riding the rules, became an even subtler fluctuation, not shooting toward the primordial purple chi, but silently merging into the palace's chaotic current of law. He couldn't seize the primordial purple chi. He could only lay the smoothest riverbed for it. Amid the collision of countless abilities, there would always be fleeting energy vacuums, weak points. If he could stitch those weak points together into a dead-end path, he could lead the primordial chi to a sacrifice. His divine thought locked onto a figure in the corner. Old ancestor Honghuang, the #1 rogue of the Great Desolation, was clinging to his sworn brother, Yuanzi, the book of the earth glowing above them as they barely defended themselves amid the chaos. "Brother Yuan, this is crazy. The saint position opportunity is not for us. Hide! Go hide far away." Honghuang stammered, white with terror. Yuanzi, solemn, was about to activate the book of the earth and move Honghuang to safety when, suddenly, "Kunpeng, get lost, this emperor!" Emperor Taiyi roared, and the suppressing power of the chaos bell swept the air. The primordial purple chi, being pursued by countless divine abilities, was swept up by Demon Master Kunpeng's claw. It traced a strange, angular arc through the air that defied ordinary law, cleverly skimming past the space-time ripples of Emperor Taiyi and narrowly avoiding Dijun's starry net. It struck an invisible slide, and its speed shot up. The angle was fiendish. It headed straight for old ancestor Honghuang's chest. Honghuang only saw a flash of purple light before he could react. The primordial purple chi slipped into his embrace and, with a silent click, bound itself to his primordial spirit. Time in the Xianxia Palace froze. All motion ceased. Sound fell away. Hundreds of blood-red, greedy, jealous, and lethal gazes converged on Honghuang. The primordial purple chi in his arms silently declared, "Heaven's mandate is with me." Silence that could make quasi-saints tremble stretched over the arena. Honghuang felt a coldness crawl through him. He lifted his head and met Kunpeng's appetite-filled eyes, saw Patriarch Styx's sinister smile as he licked his lips, felt Dijun's bottomless killing intent. The thing in his arms was a death warrant. "Ah!" Honghuang finally screamed and flailed to pry the purple chi away and throw it off, but it had already fused to his luck like a maggot in bone, impossible to peel off. No, I didn't take it, he cried, sobbing. Brother Gen Yuan, it flew over by itself. I don't want it. I really don't. Gen Yuanzi's face was chalk white. He pulled Hong Yun behind him, the Book of the Earth shining as he stared down the ravenous crowd. But who would believe them now? To everyone else, Hong Yun was the thief who had stolen their hope. In the corner, Long Chen eased back, slowly wiping golden blood from his mouth. His aura collapsed. Candle Dragon and Ao Dong finally regained movement. They slumped to the ground, drenched in cold sweat as if pulled from the verge of drowning. They looked at Hong Yun in the arena and then at Long Chen, pale and spent before them. Their expressions mixed the horror of surviving a calamity with an unprecedented awe. Your Highness, you. Candle Dragon's voice was hoarse. The single word contained all his shock. To deceive heaven itself under a saint's nose and, with a single flick, divert such a monstrous calamity onto others, such methods, such heart nature. Don't speak. Long Chen waved him off and fixed his cold gaze on the desperate figure in the arena. Sacrifice one to save two quasi-saints of the Dragon Clan and divert the Dao ancestor's attention from himself. This trade was worth it. Above the cloud platform, the Dao ancestor's gaze slid from Long Chen and lingered on the ashen Hong Yun. Hong Jun closed his eyes. He did not retract the primordial purple chi. The karmic affinity is set. Those four indifferent words were the heavenly Dao's final judgment. Hong Jun's figure dissipated, leaving an unchangeable saint's decree and a Hong Yun driven into a dead end. Set the karmic affinity? Even the Dao ancestor declared the primordial purple chi belonged to Hong Yun. Then they needed no further provocation. The moment the Dao ancestor's aura vanished, the accumulated killing intent erupted. Demon Master Kunpeng's roar was not human. It trembled with malice and madness. Die! Chapter 80, the target of public criticism. The prince sets a trap. Hong Yun, give me your life! A shrill, warped scream ripped from Kunpeng's throat. His demon master's Dharma manifestation filled the hall. A monstrous claw, blotting out the light, tore through the void. Power gathered along its edge, shaping a deadly, inescapable trajectory aimed straight for Hong Yun. The claw carried all the hatred and madness of a being who had just been stripped of a saint's position. Kunpeng, how dare you? Gen Yuanzi's hair rose on end as he roared. The Book of the Earth above his head erupted with a vast, earthy yellow divine chi, like the burden of an entire great desolate land. The light condensed into an ancient sky curtain, etched with mountain ranges and ley lines, unbreakable and stretching across the hall in front of Hong Yun. Boom! Claw met curtain in a cataclysmic collision. A storm of energy radiated out from the impact, shredding the very air. Even the supposedly indestructible floor of Xianxia Palace groaned and cracked. Gen Yuanzi's massive frame convulsed. He tasted blood and let out a strangled groan. A thin line of dazzling golden immortal blood ran from the corner of his mouth. In a single blow, he had taken Kunpeng's lethal strike, and the quasi-saint who had ruled like a sovereign now lay injured. Gen Yuanzi. Kunpeng's eyes were red, his face contorted with feral hatred. Pure killing intent coalesced around him. Are you really going to defy the entire great desolate land for him? Hong Yun is my closest friend in this life. Gen Yuanzi spat blood and refused to yield an inch, his stance immovable as an ancient mountain. Whoever dares touch him will have to step over Gen Yuanzi's corpse first. The Book of the Earth's aura roared, wrapping his friend in a fierce protective light. Behind Gen Yuanzi, Hong Yun cowered, pale and trembling. But as the two titans locked in deadly combat, a new threat appeared, silent and impossible to sense. A blood-like shadow slid into the cracks of space behind Hong Yun. Patriarch Styx, all cruelty and quiet malice, had materialized with the Yuan-Tu and Abi twin swords at his hands. No light, no sound, only two blood-tipped blades formed of the law of slaughter, void of karma, aiming like a viper's forked tongue at the vital point of Hong Yun's back. A stealth strike, a certain kill thrust. Watch out, Gen Yuanzi cried, but he was ensnared by Kunpeng. His primordial spirit and chi were being sucked away. He could not spare even a sliver of mind to save his friend. Hong Yun felt a chill crawl into his bones. The shadow of death swallowed him whole. His soul scattered, his mind blanked. He was about to bleed out in the Dao ancestor's Dao field. Then a voice cut through the murderous tension, clear, resonant, and almost absurdly joyful. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. The sound had a strange effect. It seemed to dispel the coldness in the hall. The solidified chaos ceased its advance. Patriarch Styx's twin swords froze, halted a mere handspan from Hongyun's back. Everyone turned toward the voice. Long Chen, Dragon Clan Crown Prince, strolled out from a corner of the hall with an open, grinning face. He clapped as he walked, his dazzling smile grotesquely at odds with the pall of danger around him. "Fellow Taoist Hongyun," he called, bowing deeply before the shaken man, "your merits and virtues are a model for all living beings in the great desolate land." Among the 3,000 present in this Xiao palace, no one except you has received the Tao ancestor's special regard outside of his sermon, the heavenly bestowal of a saint foundation. This is a blessing for the great desolate land. Congratulations! Congratulations! Long Chen strode to the center of the hall, unbothered by Kunpeng's and Patriarch Styx's murderous stares, and bowed as if Hongyun were already destined to sit above the world as saint and dominator of fate. "I, Long Chen, Dragon Clan Crown Prince," he announced, voice ringing through every corner of the palace, "in the name of the 4C Dragon Clan, prematurely congratulate fellow Taoist Hongyun on severing his 3 corpses, proving the Tao of Grandmist, and obtaining the supreme saint foundation of eternal indestructibility." His words stunned everyone. Kunpeng blinked, thrown off balance. Patriarch Styx frowned. Dijun and Taiyi's eyes hardened. Hongyun, who was the subject of Long Chen's effusive praise, looked like he might faint, white as paper, waving his hands frantically. "Fellow Taoist Long Chen, what are you doing? This won't do. This can't be," Hongyun stammered, desperate. "I didn't take that primordial purple chi. I don't want it. Take it away." He groped at his chest, as if he could tear the purple chi out of his own primordial spirit and luck. "Alas, fellow Taoist, you are mistaken." Long Chen's tone shifted. He stepped forward and seized Hongyun's fumbling hands, pressing them down. For the first time, his face lost its theatrics. It became stern, and his voice grew cold and resonant as thunder. The Tao ancestor spoke in golden words, personally declaring, "The predestined opportunity is set." Predestined opportunity? Destiny. Long Chen pivoted, his gaze like a blade. It cut to Kunpeng, then to Patriarch Styx. The smile drained from his face, his aura turned chilling and sovereign. "This is destiny." "Fellow Taoist Kunpeng, fellow Taoist Patriarch Styx," he said, not loudly, but with a weight that pressed down like a mountain. "What are you two trying to do? Are you going to defy heaven? Are you saying the Tao ancestor misjudged?" To question the Tao ancestor was the greatest sacrilege. The implication alone hung in the air like a verdict. "Long Chen, stop spreading lies and twisting the truth here." Kunpeng's chest heaved. Blood rose in his throat. He pointed shakily at Long Chen. "This is an ownerless item. Let the capable seize it." "Is that so? The capable should possess it?" Long Chen raised an eyebrow. A dangerous, mocking smile curved his lips. "Very well, then. The capable?" Before he finished, 2 vast quasi-saint auras erupted behind him. Zulong's ancient law of time and Aodong's razor-sharp, world-sundered Gengjin killing intent flared, intertwining into 2 massive wills, their presence alone enough to shake the heavens. They hung like twin Damocles' swords over every cultivator present, fixed with terrifying intent on Kunpeng's primordial spirit. Long Chen watched Kunpeng's face drain from green to purple to black with amused gravity. "Fellow Taoist Kunpeng," he said smoothly, "these 2 quasi-saints of my Dragon Clan, plus me, are we qualified to be the capable? Can the Dragon Clan also contend for this primordial purple chi?" It was an unmistakable, naked threat. Kunpeng's expression hardened. He suddenly realized the Dragon Clan was no longer a defenseless target he could bully. 2 quasi-saints and a crown prince of unknown capabilities. If they acted, he would gain no advantage and might instead be bled dry by these 3. He faltered. High on his cushion, Dijun watched with increasing interest, a flash of undisguised admiration and unease in his golden eyes. Long Chen's move was brilliant. He had first elevated Hongyun to a pedestal of supposed heaven-bestowed destiny, using the Tao ancestor's authority to silence open challenges. Then, without concealment, he showed his clan's teeth, simple and brutal. If you want to snatch it, you must first ask the Dragon Clan. Kunpeng and Patriarch Styx found themselves trapped between outrage and caution. Even the stoic 3 pure ones showed reaction. Sect Master Tongqin rose, eyes bright with battle lust and grudging respect. Heh, interesting, he said. Fellow Taoist Longchen, your methods are unconventional, and I approve. Yuanshi Tianzun snorted coldly, disdain etched on his face. Humph. Those who seek attention through opportunism will never reach the glorious great Tao. Taiching Laozi, still with eyes barely open, murmured 4 faint words. When the water is full, it overflows. Longchen read their responses. The trap had been sprung. The scene was set. He offered a distant salute, restored his harmlessly smiling mask, and spoke with casual grace. Since fellow Taoist Hongyun has obtained this saint opportunity, the destiny the Tao ancestor recognized, we will not disturb his comprehension of the supreme great Tao here. My dragon clan takes its leave. Without waiting to watch the faces he had so carefully shifted, Longchen turned and walked out of Xixiao Palace with Zulong and Aodong at his side, clean, decisive, and without hesitation. The fragile balance he had manufactured collapsed the instant they left. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Hundreds of greedy, vicious, cold-eyed gazes converged on old ancestor Hongyun, who clutched the primordial purple chi like a charred ember, trembling as though lowered into an ice cellar. Killing intent rose on all sides.